Dropping that culture. 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 There we go. Dropping that culture. Dropping that culture. Dropping that culture. Dropping that culture. Dropping that culture.
And welcome to another edition of Dropping That Culture with JD and AJ. I'm JD.
And I'm AJ.
And welcome to our first broadcast of the new year 2020. Welcome.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Hey, I'm sorry folks, we're lighting cigars right now as we're talking to you.
And we're just being those assholes.
You're damn right we are. Also,
because our New Year's resolution is to be the same assholes this year we were last year.
Yeah, apparently that's working. So.
I mean, just based on listenership alone.
That's right. Speaking of which, we want to thank our viewers that we have, and apparently we have some international visitors that like to listen to our particular podcast. So we want to say thanks to our fans over in Quebec, Canada, and Ireland, I believe Australia, and another foreign land, Michigan.
A lot, actually.
A lot in Michigan. So all you Michigan Wolverines out there and all you good people out there in the Motor City and whatnot, thank y'all for listening to us, man. We really appreciate
and to be fair, we like the Spartans as well. So, we're equal opportunity offenders, just as long as you're not playing you're Auburn, right? You're a Tigers fan?
Yeah, so like we were saying, thank you guys for your viewership, and we really appreciate it. We really do. But like I said, we're in the new year now, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 2020. We're in a new decade.
Yeah, we are, actually.
It's the roaring 20s.
Don't do that shit. I've been seeing a lot of those fucking memes today, and like I tell people all the time, the 20s were not a great time for black folk. So like, no, I'm not with the roaring 20s get down. So I'm just saying, that's just me. So I don't refer to it as the roaring 20s. Plus, didn't the fucking Great Depression happen in the 20s?
Nah, it's 30s.
Oh, never mind. We're close then.
Yeah, I mean, we got 10 years left till it goes to shit. Apparently.
We've already had another depression as it was anyway. So.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe it's kicked off. Maybe this is when we're gonna go into World War III, right? Go after Iran? I think who we're fucking with this weekend. Then we'll be cruising.
Have a wonderful post-apocalyptic future that that filmmakers in America that have been envisioning for decades now.
Mad Max looks like fun.
With the mohawk and assless chaps and shit.
I mean, it looks like a lot more fun than No Country. No, what was it? Children of Men. Looks like a lot more fun than that. Yeah.
What was that shit Butters did on Star Park?
Oh,
just walk away. Just walk away, and I will spare your lives. Just walk away.
Butters is one of the best characters they've come up with on that show.
Fucking hilarious, man. But let's go ahead and pop into this thing. So first off, we're going to do one of our favorite segments here, 7 Degrees of Eddie Murphy. It's a little game we play here where we basically can name any major American film star and connect them within 7 movies to the great Eddie Murphy as a variation of 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. But I think this one is a lot cooler, and plus the fact I can do this a lot easier. So AJ, do you have a couple for me this week?
Yeah, let's go old, because we were having a conversation off air before we started about the Maltese Falcon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, have we done Humphrey Bogart before?
No, we have not.
Let's do Humphrey Bogart.
Okay. Humphrey Bogart was in this is right. Okay. Humphrey Bogart was in The African Queen with Katharine Hepburn. Katharine Hepburn was in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner with Sidney Poitier. Sidney Poitier was in Let's Do It Again with Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby was in California Suite with Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor was in Harlem Nights with Eddie Murphy. Like you having a consistency.
I think we did do this on episode 1, which hopefully nobody's listened to because the audio quality was so shitty. I remember doing it through The African Queen. Now that you say it, that's how we got the connection. Because I remember going before in my brain like, how the hell would he do that? So you know what? We'll go with somebody who's not quite that old, but still an old one. Let's do Clint Eastwood.
That's a good one. Clint. Clint has been in so much shit.
I know. It should be easy.
It should be easy, but still.
Only thing easier I could come up with maybe is Bruce Willis.
No. That would be super easy.
Because I'm just talking about total volume of work.
Yeah. I want to get a really good Clint one here. Got it. Clint Eastwood was in the Line of Fire with Rene Russo. Rene Russo was in Showtime with Eddie Murphy.
Shit. That was super quick. That was way too easy. It's all because you can't abide another man anymore.
And I was just thinking about like John Malkovich the other day too, because he's the bad guy in that movie. Remember?
Yeah, that's killer.
John Malkovich. Okay, so we got Clint, we got Humphrey. One more. Let's do one more.
You can go for a trifecta?
Let's go for a trifecta.
You don't want me to ruin it? Come up with something that's just too obscure?
Just do it.
Bobcat.
Goldthwait?
Yeah.
Not that obscure. Actually, not that obscure. Bobcat Goldthwait was in... What's that movie? Yeah. He was in Scrooged with Bill Murray. Bill Murray was in Ghostbusters with Dan Aykroyd. Dan Aykroyd was in Trading Places with Eddie Murphy.
I'm actually disappointed you didn't get to him through Whoopi Goldberg.
I was thinking that route, but I was like, you know what, this is easier.
You saw Burglar, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm about to say Burglar, yeah. But this is easier.
One of my favorite scenes in comedic history is when he's in there yelling at the bartender. Like, you think you were my idea of some dream come true, taking shit from a dildo with ears.
Oh, my God. My favorite thing from him was in Police Academy 4, Citizens on Patrol.
That was pretty good.
No, when he was, we called old boy Jerk.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Harris. Jerk. What? He said thank you. No, I said jerk. That was pretty clear. Jerk.
Dude, have you heard his stand-up?
Yeah.
Now he's back doing stand-up again?
No, I used to watch his old HBO stuff.
Well, dude, he's come back around.
Oh, wow.
Dude, I actually heard him, it's probably about maybe a year and a half, 2 years old now. But on, was it Joe Rogan? Oh my God, dude. And then I went and looked at, because he was hilarious. Like, he was explaining, like, he had that whole problem when he lit the couch on fire on The Tonight Show and everything.
Yeah.
So he was explaining his thinking and how that obviously didn't work out to his advantage. They ended up charging him with arson and all that shit. But now that he's, he's kind of grown past that, he's a dad. He's got, I think his kid's in high school or graduated from high school already. He's doing a Bobcat version of dad comedy that's freaking hilarious. Like, it's worth a listen.
My shit is also from Police Academy, the second one where he said, what's your mom's? Because Mahoney went undercover with his in his gang. He was Zed, the gang leader. And he's like, hey, what's your mother's name? My mom's name is Jughead. No, Jughead. My mom's name is Jughead. I'm sorry to hear that. Why? It's a good American name. So fucking weird. And then
Dude, everything with him's weird.
And the grocery shit, like when he did wrecking the shit or whatever, and he's like asking for coupons. Thank you very much. You had a lot of really nice bargains here.
He's got one of the most unique and frankly hilarious voices ever. It's like him and Gilbert Gottfried.
Yeah, Gilbert Gottfried. I can listen more to Bobcat than I can Gilbert Gottfried. I'm like, God damn. Man.
See, but for me, Gilbert Gottfried's always going to have a place in my heart because he was the voice of Iago on Aladdin.
You
right?
schmoes.
Well, like when we were little kids and everything, like I remember like I used to have like this Iago puppet thing that my parents got me, and I used to do like his whole little monologue thing when he's yelling at Jafar. It's like, look at me, I'm so ticked off that I'm molting.
Yeah,
I tried to do that voice.
Yeah.
I tried to do that voice even though I was like 6 and my voice wasn't deeper than maybe an alto at that point.
Yeah. My favorite thing that he's ever done is, and I've mentioned this before, Superman the animated series. He was the voice of their version of Mr. Mxyzptlk. And that's
interesting.
And he's such an that was such an annoying character as it was to have Gilbert Gottfried's voice with it. I'm like, oh my God, are you serious?
You know,
because all he did was come and fuck with Superman. That's all he was there to do. And he's like all powerful, but the only thing that really gets him off is fucking with Superman.
You know what? Actually, I think his best performance ever was when he was the interpreter for Marley Matlin. Whose roast was that?
I know what you're talking about though.
I can't remember which roast that was. That was freaking hilarious.
And the shit, Farce of the Penguins when he's freezing.
Oh, yeah.
I'm freezing my nuts off.
He was pretty good as the voice of the Affleck duck.
Yeah.
Until his comedic timing got a little off on his Twitter.
I'm going to stop trying to do the Gilbert Gottfried voice because it actually hurt my throat.
No, it really does. Like I stopped doing that shit like 15 years ago, dude.
Jesus Christ.
I quit in high school.
All right.
Sounds like we're talking about smoking, but it's really just doing Gilbert Gottfried impressions.
All right, now we knocked out a trifecta. We got Humphrey Bogart, we got Clint Eastwood, and we got Bobcat Goldthwait for 7 Degrees Eddie Murphy. Now, let's go ahead and go into another segment of our show here. WWBS. What would Busey say? Now, this is the new year, so do you have a good idea of what Busey would say about it? Or?
Well, we could be topical, or we could just see where it takes us. Because I got to be honest, when you did this, the one about Aston Martins that rolled into pizza last time, that was it was quite entertaining for me.
Thank you very much.
I would really like to know what he hates, though, and that's just seeming to take a hell of a long time to get to.
You know what? I think I can find something.
You can find something?
I can find
something. Do you want to do your own prompt this week?
Yeah, okay. So let's go say...
I mean, I've got options, but...
No. We're going to say what Busey would say about Twitter trends.
Twitter trends?
Yeah.
All right. I'm ready for that.
Goddamn Twitter trends. Every 6 months is some bullshit. Actually, it's not even sooner than that. Every 2 weeks, there's always some new bullshit on Twitter that everybody's got to do. Some new challenge. The last one I really enjoyed was the Mimo. The one was like this. There was like this doll that was giving death threats to children. I appreciated that. But you know, I really couldn't stand fucking all the different stupid challenges, like the planking challenge. Remember that one? You get on some wood and just stay there like a piece of wood. It's fucking stupid. Make no fucking sense to me. You know what I also hated? The goddamn ice bucket challenge. That was so fucking stupid. I know it's for a good cause. ALS is wonderful and all the good shit. However, I don't really get the whole thing about pouring a bucket of ice on yourself for the entertainment of millions of people. I pour buckets of ice on myself basically on a daily basis, but that's for a whole nother reason. Okay, that's just me. That's kind of how I get myself off. You know, after that, I usually have a good cigar. I love that stuff. Also, another trend I hated. Why is there a goddamn holiday for things that don't deserve having holidays? It's National Siblings Day. It's National Boyfriend Day. It's National fucking Pets Day. Who gives a fucking shit? Okay, let's stick to the regular holidays. You know a holiday that I love that nobody respects? Fucking Arbor Day. You know fucking Arbor Day? When's the last time you celebrated fucking Arbor Day? Okay, or back in the 90s, back when people were actually conscious, Earth Day. They have that bullshit now where they try to get everything to be green and all whatever, but everything's all half-hearted and shit. I used to watch Nickelodeon all the time when they did Earth Day, and you would go out, plant a fucking tree. Nobody does that anymore. You go out and plant a fucking tree, save this goddamn Earth. That's the way I feel about that shit. Tiger Blood. How's that?
Apparently, it's Twitter trends. I gotta admit, I'm not a big fan myself.
Exactly.
But maybe that's because we've never been a trend, and he's only been a trend in a joking way.
Yeah, that's true.
The one thing I will say about your Busey is he tends to be a lot more coherent.
In the actual Busey.
In the actual, I have the hardest. Like every time I actually and like. Fan, obviously. We wouldn't spend this much time if we didn't appreciate it. But every time I hear him give any kind of an interview or whatever, it comes across to me like he's constantly on an acid trip. Like, I don't know if you've ever talked to anyone who's like tripping balls on acid or something, but whenever you have a conversation with somebody who's gone.
Yeah, we know one. Bill.
Oh, shit, yeah. Yeah, but Bill, most of the time, it's a flashback. It's not a current trip. Like, I've known guys, living in Los Angeles and everything out here. Holy shit, dude. Like, I mean, that hippie shit gets so far out there. Nothing against hippies, I'm just saying. It just, you lose me at a certain point. I can't track anymore.
Well, goddamn, bro.
Yeah, and that's kind of where he lives. But the Tiger Blood, I mean, it's almost like, what is it? I would say it's like maybe 50% Charlie Sheen from time to time, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tiger Blood.
I appreciate it. The Tiger Blood.
Tiger Blood.
All right, well, I guess we're probably rolling to dropping that news.
Yeah.
Dropping
that news. We're going to find a prompt for that shit.
Send us money. We'll make this better.
Yeah, for real.
I know how to increase production value. We're just broke as fuck.
Yeah, yes, we are. So, fucking. But as far as movie news going right now, Dick's news.
You heard about the actress who killed her mother, right?
Yeah, she was
yesterday. She was in was it Civil War?
No, she was in the original Captain America.
Oh, the original Captain America.
And it was like I saw that headline. It's like they say Captain America actress killed somebody. Like, She was an extra.
I think she might have gotten day rate.
No, she was
because she was like a Stark assistant or something, right? Was that like what they billed her as?
No. There was a part in like the beginning of the movie where they're at the Stark Expo, and there's a bunch of girls on stage with him, like as he's doing as Howard Stark is displaying some new invention. She's one of those girls. That's it. She has no lines. So fucking like when they say Captain America, actress was like whatever. But yeah, she did unfortunately kill her own mother.
Yeah. Well, and then another sad note for starting out the new decade here. The son of one of the creators of Orange Is the New Black unfortunately died in a skiing accident. It was either yesterday or the day before out in Park City, Utah. So a little bit of a rough start for a few people.
And actually, one thing that I saw.
There's an understatement.
Yeah, stop. Jack Sheldon, singer most famous for his work on Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. That guy.
On Capitol Hill, yeah.
And I'm sitting here. Oh, yeah. I always love that dude's voice.
Dude, I love Schoolhouse Rock.
I think he was also remember they had the light bulb. It was I forgot the name. No, it was a character. It was like a lightning bug who was like some kind of advocate for conserving energy.
Or was it like a DWP thing or something?
I don't know, but like when he would show like these, they would have like these commercials where he's like a lightning bug. Is that voice like, hey, take the light bulbs out? You know, like put if there's a socket, put a light bulb in there. That kind of thing. Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah, I'll look it up, but he's like a bug or some shit like that. And it's like maybe it's a southern thing, I'm not sure, but like that voice was like he was the lightning bug guy.
He's always gonna be
Bill.
Yeah, exactly.
Bill.
Schoolhouse Rocks. In fact, it's worth a binge watch.
I will, but today.
What was it? I can't remember. Was it Family Guy that did the spoof on that?
Yeah, well he was like, Peter was like cleaning up shit, and then he cleaned up Bill.
Yeah,
he stabbed Bill.
Well, no, but there was another thing where they were like, I think it was. It was either that or it was Simpsons, but I'm pretty sure it was Family Guy, where they had a whole thing where they talked about the way bills get made in Congress and like all the bullshit stuff behind the scenes everybody's always doing.
That would probably be more Simpsons.
Maybe it was Simpsons. Whatever it was hilarious because they go and they have a complete and different, what do you call it, satire of the whole thing. So
yeah, but I love that guy's voice, man. And like I said,
great.
And like you just said, Schoolhouse Rock, for those of you who don't know, is actually a great thing. Great series to fucking just binge watch. I had a few favorites on there. My favorite one is still to this day is Figure 8.
Yeah,
that shit is so good. Dun, 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 dun. I learned my damn math from that song. Dun, dun, dun. Figure 8 is 2 times 4.
Good Lord.
2 times 4.
I will say this: with everything that's being uploaded to YouTube and all the different new streaming platforms, my kids will be watching that one day when I have kids.
Fuck yeah! Hey, plus it's education.
That's what I'm saying, man.
Education.
It was infotainment.
Lolly, 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 get your adverbs here. That was my shit. Yeah, what's the other one? Conjunction, junction. What's your function? There's some adverbs and adjectives. Some shit.
You know, it's crazy. I can just about sing the whole song. Mm-hmm. I still, I'm horrible if you want me to sit. I could never teach an English class.
Me either.
I was talking to my
wife
about
writers.
the
That's the fucked up part about it. We're writers, but we can't. Yeah, I can't.
Dude, you want to know what's funny? So my wife, English was her second language. She learned that when she moved here when she's 4.
Yeah,
she's an English teacher.
Oh.
I couldn't teach to save my life. She's fixing my shit.
I'm literally born.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Born and raised here, first language. The words look right on paper.
That tells you a lot about Americans.
I do the Oxford comma. I know that. That's an argument that I can have. That's about it.
There's actually, Kevin Nash, the wrestler. When the statements like that happen, he has a great statement about that. It's freaking man, I'm doing the best I can here, man. I'm just, I'm the guy doing the sky on the puzzle.
Yeah.
That's who I am.
I saw the most hellish puzzle the other day. Mm-hmm. It was all, the whole thing, just black. Jesus. There was no color, no nothing, anything. It was just a gigantic, it was like a 2,000-piece puzzle. The whole thing was one color. So you're just like, well, fuck my life.
For real, this is a joke.
I guess we're going to start on the edges.
This is a joke, right?
It's honestly masochistic.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
There's no way to know what you're doing.
Yeah. As far as entertainment news right now, there's really not that much going on, to be honest with you folks. I think it's just right now.
Globes, just around the corner.
That's right. I think it's next.
It's actually, I believe it's this weekend.
It's coming Sunday, right?
Yep. On Sunday.
All right, so we got some nominees out there. It's like quite a few of them. I actually posted a lot on the Belsaverse page. If you go to Facebook and look up Belsaverse, I have a whole list of the Golden Globe nominees in terms of the different categories. So you want to go check that out. Go to Belsaverse on Facebook. And I think this is a good time to plug our sponsors since we go ahead and talk about it. So first sponsor would be Belsaverse, the Belsaverse page on Facebook, and also Belsaverse group on Facebook. And there's also the Belsaverse page on Instagram. We also, like I said, Belsaverse.com is in the process. We have the domain and all that stuff. We just need to get the site together. And also, if you want to get some of that sweet Belsaverse merch, go to teespring.com and go to the Belsaverse page. Get yourself some merch. We have some sellers during the holiday season. I'm very happy about that. Go on there, get yourself some merch, people. You'll enjoy it. It's a great conversation starter, you know what I'm saying? And like I said, it helps support the show. And we also have another sponsor. We'll go ahead and talk about that.
Do you like hookers? Do you like rugby?
Yeah.
Do you like the U.S.? Well, go to ushooker.com for all of your USA rugby apparel needs. Also, it's a good place to learn about the sport. Mm-hmm. And, you've only got about 5 weeks left. Mm-hmm. Football's over. Yep. But guess what starts in 2 weeks?
Rugby.
Major League Rugby, USA. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a total blast. Watch these guys beat the living shit out of each other while they're trying to get from one end of the field to the other. Mm-hmm. Probably the single best invention the Englishmen have ever come up with since a bunch of them decided to start America.
Nice. But when you started there, it actually reminded me of this old thing on Animaniacs. You ever seen what I'm talking about? It's like two ladies in the mall bugging the Warner kids, like, would you like to take a survey?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Do you like beans? You like George Wendt? Would you like to go see a movie with George Wendt eating beans? Would you like to eat beans while watching George Wendt in the movie? Would you sit with George Wendt while eating the movie? They just kept saying beans, George Wendt in the movie. That's what it reminded me, because you like hookers? You like rugby? You like hookers while watching rugby? You like eating beans while watching
Do you like eating beans and watching rugby with hookers in the U.S.? And then just so everyone actually understands, for all of you non-rugby watchers out there, hooker's actually a position in the sport. One of the fun things about rugby, because it was created by the Englishmen, they've got some really weird ways of talking about some shit, some really funny sounding names, and we just decided to have some fun with them. We put together this thing to promote rugby to Americans. But honestly, it's like going from boxing to MMA.
Yeah.
You're gonna find yourself watching football and go, shit, I wish these guys would do a scrum, or that they'd keep cruising and you wouldn't have all this stoppage and everything. It's a killer sport.
Yes, sir. It's pretty dope. All right. So
we should roll back into news since we jumped out.
All right,
watch Golden Globes this weekend. All your favorite celebrities are going to get shit-faced.
Yeah. That should be interesting, yeah.
Well, that's what it always is. I mean, in fact, before it was televised, one of my teachers, he used to go every year way back in the day, and he said that he preferred it before they televised it because it was the best part of the year. Everyone would get shit-faced drunk. The speeches were hilarious because it didn't go anywhere. Yeah. Now everybody's got to be mindful of the way they look and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. There's going to be some drunk people there, though. Guaranteed.
I will say of the big, best picture nods that are going in right now, my favorite, and, what I'm saying, I've seen the other ones. I'm basically saying they're my favorite because it's the only one I've seen, would be 1917 by Sam Mendes.
I still haven't seen that.
It is so good. I want to watch it. It is so good. And that's the way it's shot, it's just one really long, one really fucked up day. Set in World War I and based on a true story. I really suggest it. It's really, really good. And
and from what I understand, they were able to hide the shots, so they have a ton of continuous shots, so it feels like one continuous
really
shot.
Long day.
Right, so there's not really any sense of a break or any kind of a establishing shot to take you out of the moment.
But there are moments where it's that's a cut. That's a cut. But that's to the season now. But in terms of how they do it, it's very, very cleverly hidden. So I would definitely suggest that one. And then a couple other nominees I know they do one for comedy. My favorite right now would be Dolomite Is My Name.
Yeah, but here's the problem with the Hollywood Foreign Press when it comes to comedy. Mm-hmm. I don't know what they're thinking half the time. Because you remember, what was it? The Martian won Best Comedy one year.
Oh, yeah, the show the fuck did.
Yeah, and I was going...
That's not a funny movie.
Is this a Lost in Translation thing?
Yeah, it's not.
It was never meant to be a comedy. At least I don't think so. I mean, Donald Glover was in it, but
yeah, but he did some things.
I feel like it. I mean, I thought it was a pretty decent little sci-fi.
Yeah, it wasn't a comedy.
It wasn't a comedy
at all. So I don't know. I didn't get that.
Was it a musical?
No, it wasn't a musical.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know
weird.
how they're getting where they're going sometimes, but
like I said, Dolomite is my favorite, and also my favorite in terms of winning the award for Best Actor for comedy would be Eddie Murphy, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so
without a doubt.
Without a doubt. So there are like a couple other nominees, but that's the one that I remember off the top of my head. So like I said, go check out the Golden Globes when you get a chance, folks. And
or at least check in to see who won, and then make your own determination.
Yeah, that'd be nice. But yeah, that's
pretty much all that's happening right now.
For the news, yeah. We'll get more news when more news actually comes up. There's really nothing going on.
The problem is right now, as we sit here, January 2nd, all the people who are going to be making news and entertainment are still on vacation. They're going to start arriving back in town tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday.
It's pilot season, folks.
Next week, we're going to get into some fun.
Yeah, fucking young actors like myself, we're getting our fucking headshots ready, getting our reels ready. It's pilot season. We get out there and get ourselves seen. I got my agency now. I got my headshots going. Got my different looks going. Somebody gonna pick me, goddammit.
And all us vendors are out there. We're getting all the trucks ready. We're making sure the gates and everything are working. We're picking up straps, ferny pads, all that stuff. Getting the art department ready to rock and roll.
Exactly. So like right now, you're getting a very unique look in terms of Hollywood from two guys working just two different spectrums of it.
We're working our way up.
Damn right we are. But now we're gonna go ahead.
I hope it's up.
Stop.
We better not have peaked.
You're damn right we're not gonna peak. Are you fucking kidding me? But as far
peak so hard.
Now we're gonna go ahead and get into our actual show. And this is actually a first for us. This is the first time where we actually sit down and focus on one particular subject matter that is not a watch along.
That's true.
And the one we are discussing this week, and we actually discussed it briefly last week, TV spinoffs. Now, for those of you not familiar with the concept of a TV spinoff, say you have a popular show that's been doing well for years, and on that show you have maybe a supporting character or a supporting storyline that is really catching on with fans, and so much so that fans would love to see maybe that character or that storyline as its own show. So the producers of a lot of TV shows tend to say, hey, maybe we could do something else with this character or maybe with this storyline, spin it off into its own thing and make some more money on another show. And that would be the basic basis of a spinoff.
Probably the most famous one I can think of off the top of my head that majority of, at least our listeners, would probably know. Family Guy, spinoff into Cleveland.
Right. And then like technically speaking, they connected them in the crossover with American Dad. Yeah. So they're all connected now.
But I mean, if you're going to go that direction, because they're all Fox properties, I mean, they're connected to The Simpsons.
They also did the spinoff with The Simpsons, and then the Simpsons did a spinoff with The Critic. Yeah. So they're all and Futurama. So they're all
Critic.
Connected.
That was pretty freaking funny.
I used to love The Critic, man. That was a great show. So definitely ahead of its time.
Speaking of critics, slight little rabbit trail here. Do you see Lemony Snicket? Wasn't that the character that Martin Short used to do?
Well, you're talking about Jiminy Glick.
Jiminy Glick, sorry. Yeah. I'm mixing up.
You're thinking of the Jim Carrey, Lemony Snicket.
Oh, yeah, the series of unfortunate events.
Yeah.
No, Jiminy Glick. Yeah. No,
I used to love the Jiminy Glick. I watched them every once in a while.
It's still on Netflix now. I watched it the other day.
Yeah.
Dude, it's freaking hilarious.
I like the old school ones, the prime time Glick, when he had his own show on Comedy Central with like Billy Crystal and Killer Steve Martin and Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Janine Garofalo is actually a favorite one of mine because it's the most I've ever seen her laugh.
I mean, honestly, it's a forerunner of Between Two Ferns.
Definitely.
It really is. Because, I mean, the only difference is that he's still trying to play it like he's a critic, where Zach Galifianakis is just obviously being a dick.
Yeah.
Which I'm surprised he survived that one where he went toe-to-toe with Hillary Clinton. Yeah. She looked like she was going to kill him a couple of times.
One I really liked was when Damon Wayans was on there. He kept naming him every Wayans but Damon Wayans. So you're Keenan Ivory? You're Marlon Wayans, right? No, I'm Damon Wayans. So Damon Keenan Wayans? He just kept doing shit like that. No, Damon Ivory Wayans?
Well, the Charlize Theron one, when he tells her he hopes his dog, hopes her dog dies, and then she starts laughing and saying, the first time I saw it, dude, I nearly cried. I was laughing so hard. Yeah, he's freaking hilarious. He's got killer timing.
And actually he did a recent Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee with Jerry Seinfeld talking about Jiminy Glick. Apparently Seinfeld is the first Glick.
Really?
Seinfeld is the very first one.
That's cool, man.
And he's done multiple ones, but the very first Seinfeld one is the very first Jiminy Glick. And also, but he says his favorite joke that he ever did was with the Mel Brooks one. And he looks at Mel Brooks and says, "So, what's your big gripe with the Jews? What's your big gripe with the Nazis?"
Dude, I told you I was listening to that other podcast. What's his name? I can't remember his name. He's the guy that does the voiceover. He used to do Dirty Jobs. He did the voiceover for Dangerous Catch. Or Deadliest Catch, I mean. But anyway,
yeah.
He's got a podcast, and he was telling this story, apparently about Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks was in the Battle of the Bulge.
Yeah.
I mean, and he actually climbed up some tower to put up a big speaker, and then he purposely put on a famous song by a Jewish musician at the time just to fuck with the Nazis. Like, he was doing all that kind of shit. And the fact that dude survived all of that and came back to create some of the best comedy ever. I mean,
I love Mel Brooks, man.
He is honestly, he's a comedic god.
Yeah.
There's no other way to put it than that. He's a brilliant writer and just fucking hilarious.
Yeah. I remember there was another story about another guy doing a podcast, Rob Paulson, who's like a prolific, prolific voice actor out here in Hollywood. He's done he's done Animaniacs and Tiny Toons and God knows so many cartoons. And apparently when he was just a young struggling actor out here, he auditioned for a Mel Brooks movie, and he was being like kind of witty but not like overtly funny. And Mel Brooks actually stopped him in the middle of his audition. He's like, "Look, kid, wit is shit, funny is money." And
that's a great line.
Yeah. And went on to this do his own thing. But yeah, that was one Mel Brooks story I do like. Now, as far as actual TV shows go, there have been God knows how many spinoffs of popular TV shows.
The real question, though, is how many survived?
Exactly. But what we're going to do, we have actually compiled a little list of certain ones that are more popular than most. Some survived, some didn't. Actually, a lot of them are in the same group together.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They have one show that have spawned some successful shows, some that were not successful. But we're going to go through that list. Now, the first one off the bat would be the legendary CBS television show, All in the Family. Mm-hmm. In itself is actually a ripoff of a British show, Till Death Do Us Part. No, I've actually watched an episode of Till Death Do Us Part. Same set, same thing. Like freaking like
to paraphrase Quentin Tarantino, good artists borrow, great artists steal.
They stole the shit out of it. It's basically Till Death Do Us Part, but Americanized. But that's the All in the Family, of course, the legendary CBS show created by Norman Lear, starring Carol O'Connor, Maureen Stapleton, Rod Reiner, Sally Struthers, and it basically tells the story of the Bunker family, mainly the husband Archie, who is this old school uber conservative, semi-racist, semi-racist. He's a pretty racist guy, and his simple-minded wife and his politically opinionated son-in-law Mike, and his little girl Gloria, and their different adventures. And like I said, All in the Family was groundbreaking television. The first couple of years it was on the air, it was like the number one show on television.
Well, and I mean, how much do you know about the origin of the show in terms of like what the producers said they were trying to do?
Other than the Trajectory of Park thing, that's really about it.
So what I understand their original intent was, because this is right in the middle of probably one of the first and bigger, at least national culture wars that was seen in the media. Mm-hmm. The idea was they wanted to create a character that was going to be, for lack of a better term, abhorrent or force people to confront the real like negative or evil parts of the way they think or do or whatever. Mm-hmm. So that's the whole idea behind Archie Bunker. Yeah, it actually backfired on them majorly because he ended up becoming the most popular character, and the reason is because as the writing developed and stuff, transformed and everything took shape. I mean, this happens in every long run TV show. I mean, you see it in The Office between season 1 and 3, right?
Yes.
Everybody finds their niche and the writers get their voice and adjust. People actually, even though he, let's say to be generous, he's passively racist. Like he just is going with his prior conceived notions and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he goes with the stereotype of a person as opposed to
Well, but I mean, a lot of it goes back to really want to boil down and get down to it's like the availability heuristic. This is the shit he's heard his whole life, so that's what he is. Yeah. But what people admired and liked about him, what the audience liked about him, was twofold. One, he told it the way it was, at least in his mind. Mm-hmm. And he was unapologetic. He didn't ever let anybody push him off of what he believed or mess with him. And he also, even though, like we were saying, if you want to say it's passively racist, he was never like out there in a sheet burning crosses and doing all kinds of crazy shit. And then
actually there were episodes where there were people that did do that and he was against it.
Exactly. And so that's what I was saying. That's what people liked about it. Because I mean, like, all of us being America the way that it is, right? You look at the whole totality. I'm sure you've got relatives that have said some shit that you go, what the fuck are you saying? I know I've got some where I've been like,
what the fuck
are you saying? You know what I mean? And it's just, it is what it is when it comes down to, the reality is, because America's a melting pot. Like, we're the only country that truly doesn't have a nationality, right?
True.
It's just like, you can put 25 people in a room, none of them look even remotely like, they could all be Americans. I heard Dango Tosh once said, the Chinese Olympic team. Would you have guessed 100% Chinese? Right? You know what I mean? It's like, because we have that aspect, so that's what fed into it and actually made him so popular. And what I'd say is kind of funny, too, when you think about with Rob Reiner.
Yeah.
You could almost argue, based on his later career, and I'm not talking necessarily about in the arts, but just his personal or public life.
Yeah.
Was he really even playing a character? Because that's just like all of that, like uber, like left leaning, like kind of liberal politic thing. Like that's just him. Like,
that is basically.
It was almost a documentary with him dealing with, I'm guessing, his relatives.
Yes, and then actually, I think it was the first show ever where all 4 leads won the Emmy for different categories. Like I said, it's groundbreaking television because of the fact they use so many racial epithets and they deal with different subject matter that was initially taboo on television: racism, sexism. They had one drag queen episode. They had was another one. The most famous episode, really, of most people that would ever see the show would be the Sammy Davis Jr. one.
Yeah.
When Sammy Davis, like Archie drives Sammy Davis Jr. in his cab. Sammy Davis, I think, leases his wallet in Archie's cab and then comes to Archie's house and gets it. And then, of course, Archie being Archie, saying a bunch of passively racist shit to Sammy Davis Jr., who knows. You can see Sammy knows what kind of dude he's dealing with. He's just fucking with him the entire time. And it's so fucking funny. And then, of course, the ending is really with the kicker of the show because he's like been talking about this thing about he's kind of okay with black folks, but not really okay with black folks. But he likes Sammy Davis. But
he's like always kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah. But he loves Sammy Davis Jr. And then, like, you know what? Why don't we get a picture? So at the very end of the show, he's like, all right, it's cheese. Sammy Davis turns to him, kisses him on the cheek. So he has that picture forever of a black man kissing him. It's yours. That's your one picture with Sammy Davis Jr.
Well, and see, and that's the real legacy of that show over everything else. At a time that was probably at least as polarized, if not maybe even more so than we're tending to get now. If you want to, talk about totality, what's happening in culture today, this was a place that was, for the most part, pretty safe to prod and poke and to have a bit of a conversation, and that ultimately, even though people can talk shit or whatever about the way that you end up with, the lesson that you have to learn at the end of the episode, it really was that, and ultimately, I think in the broader sense, it ended up being a net positive. It didn't get us all the way there. Fuck, we're not even close to all the way there.
Yeah.
But it was a progressive thing to push things forward.
Yeah.
So that there's better, kind of relationship, people understanding each other.
I think the first toilet flush on television was on All in the Family. And also, like I said, the drag queen episode, and it had such a horrible ending because, like, Archie is dealing with this drag queen character or whatever. Like, all the other people in the whole neighborhood are, like, against him. Archie actually comes to like the person for the person who he is. And then as he's leaving, they kill that character in a car bomb in front of Archie's house. And the whole family's out there just like, and then Archie's just appalled, like, oh my God, he didn't deserve that.
Right. Well, and again, that was like the magic of Archie, because again, you talk about the passive racism, and like all of the basically what it comes down to is he had a lot of really fucked up preconceived stereotypes and notions in his brain.
Yeah.
But one of the things people like about Archie, even watching it today, he somehow usually finds a way, or he's maybe even pushed to have to confront the stereotype ideology of what he's got, and then he ultimately always judges the person he's dealing with on an individual basis. Who is this? So, like, even if he's got some racist thing going on where he's thinking, like, black people are stealing shit or something like that,
bullshit,
ultimately at the end, he gets to a point where he's like, well, this person right here, he might be black, but he's not that, and it doesn't get him all the way, but it at least starts to open his mind and his life and ultimately the audience's mind to the facts like, hey, maybe you have some fucked up stuff in your head that's not right.
Yeah.
And that's the true legacy of that show, aside from the spinoff, which is one of my favorite spinoffs.
Actually, it's several spinoffs, but we're gonna go actually.
But you know the one I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. But the spinoffs themselves, like I said, All in the Family, as popular a show as it was, became spinoff central.
Oh yeah.
Like the very first spinoff.
I think more than anything, right?
Well, it's close. There's another one that's close.
Okay,
I'll get to that. But the first one that popped off of All in the Family, Maude. Maude debuted in September 1972 and actually featured Edith's cousin, Maude Finley, played by the late B. Arthur. That was the first spinoff of All in the Family.
I'm sorry. Every time anybody mentions that show, I immediately go to Family Guy.
Oh, when they did the opening?
When they did the opening song.
From Donny Hathaway. Donny Hathaway is the one that did the original opening. But yeah, it's such a long opening because it's like this long. The opening of Maude is this long establishing shot. He's doing all these things. Lady Godiva was a freedom rider. And all this other crazy shit. And then you get to a house. And then there's Maude.
But what's great, if you haven't seen it, YouTube that shit.
Yeah.
Peter's sitting there, and the song just keeps going and going, and he keeps going. And then there's Maude, and then there's a bunch more shit, and then there's Maude.
But the whole gist of the song is that Donny Hathaway is naming all these famous women with all these different accomplishments. Susan B. Anthony, shit like that. And he just keeps going, and Peter just going, and then there's Maude. Come on, man. And then finally gets to it. And then there's Maude. And he goes, yeah. But Maude Finley actually first debuted on an episode of All in the Family called Cousin Maude's Visit, where she actually came and took care of the entire family when they were sick with the flu. And of course, the whole get down of the episode is she is like as super conservative as Archie is. She is super liberal and just as much of a blowhard as he is, and that's why they can't stand each other. And because of the fact you got these war with these two. Different ideologies, you know what I'm saying? And, it makes for really good television. And, like, it was so good television they actually brought her back a year later in another episode called just Maude. And that acted as a backdoor pilot for her own TV show. And that was in 1972. Now, what it was is Archie and Edith go to Maude's house in Westchester County, and they attend, like, a wedding party for Maude's daughter, Carol.
Okay.
And the whole time, Archie's being Archie and all that shit. And then, of course, Maude is, having arguments with her husband and her family. So, like I said, it just served as a little backdoor pilot of what a Maude TV show could be. And it was so popular, it actually became a TV show. Maude ran for 6 years, from 1972 to 1978.
Got to get that syndication.
And like I said, Maude became, like I said, the pretty much the opposite of Archie, but just as much of a blowhard, just in another direction. You know what I'm saying? And that's another one, another controversial show, also produced by Norman Lear, because that was one of the first shows to feature domestic abuse.
Yep.
There was an episode where her husband actually, punches Maude. You know what I'm saying? And the whole episode is like her denying that happened. And the husband just like trying to figure out what happened. Why did he do that? Nothing. So
well, but I mean, technically, if you want to roll it back a little bit to Honeymooners, right in the kisser.
Yeah, but this is the one that actually showed.
I know.
Showed domestic violence. So, and also another first for television. Maude's character is the first character on television to ever have an abortion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an episode where she got pregnant and she's like she's a middle-aged woman. She didn't want to have a child as a middle-aged woman, so she decided to get an abortion. That was a very controversial episode,
especially that time.
Yes, it was. And like I said, the husband on the show was the late Bill Macy. He recently just passed away within the last year. And also, Carol was played by Adrienne Barbeau. And this is when the time where Adrienne Barbeau was, super hot, and she was a 70s sex symbol, and she rarely wore bras, and she has really nice breasts. So like she made it must see TV. Yeah, so
you're detail oriented.
I'm a fan of Adrienne Barbeau. But yeah, ran for six seasons for 141 episodes, with the last episode airing in April 1978. Now, one thing that Maude has over most of the other spinoffs, it is the first one of these shows to have a spinoff of a spinoff. The spinoff for Maude, Good Times. Because the spinoff of Maude basically focused on Florida Evans, who was Maude Finley's maid.
Oh, and
she started out as Maude's maid, and she was like the sassy black maid on the TV show.
I always forget how that connection happened.
She was Maude's maid.
That's right.
She was Maude's maid. Now, both her and James Evans both first appeared on Maude. Because like there's one episode where Florida has somewhere to go, and James came to go and get her, but like they were having like marital issues, and Maude was trying to like intercept.
Yeah, get herself involved,
get involved in their business. Like, no, who you? Like, who are you? Yeah, and then the thing about it is they changed a lot of the story of the Evans family before they actually got their own show. Because Maude is based in Westchester, New York. Good Times is based in a housing project in Chicago. And also,
it's better though.
And also, on the show, James's name was Henry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and they changed it to James for the TV show, and then it became its own thing with JJ and Walona and Bookman and all them other people on there, and that in itself became its own successful show, which ran from 1974. To 1979, and then of course the famous, Janet Jackson getting burnt with iron shit. Yeah. So Janet Jackson was a character on there named Penny, who was an abused child.
Well, and I mean, look, anybody who's a fan of television today, right? If you're going to talk about something like Breaking Bad or Sopranos or anything like that, you have to give it up to shows like this because they're the ones who really blaze the trail to allow you to get into some of this heavier content.
Yeah, they were first, man.
Because I mean, basically, television prior to All in the Family was, for the most part, pretty damn close to I Love Lucy on whatever it was you were watching. And nothing against I Love Lucy, well, maybe, but we won't get into that right now. It opened every door for everybody.
And then, like, some of the more famous episodes of Good Times, one in particular was when they actually killed off James Evans. And keep in mind, James Evans was a positive black father, which is very rare on television at that time. But the thing about it is,
it's still pretty rare today.
Yeah, they depicted James as being no nonsense. If the kids got in trouble, he was right there. He'll whoop their ass if they needed to. He was quick to pull out a belt on the fucking kids and shit, which a lot of people didn't, of course, white folk didn't really appreciate. But they finally killed out.
Really?
Yeah, shut up.
No, I mean seriously, because my family, we grew up as more don't step out of line.
People didn't appreciate that on TV for some reason, but they killed out.
Truth.
I think the behind the scenes was like they were John Amos was like not happy with how they portrayed JJ, because JJ was basically a walking stereotype. And,
a little bit.
And the producers wouldn't budge on that, so they got rid of James. And the storyline wise, James was actually supposed to be going to like Alaska to some like pipeline to get some extra money. And eventually, when he got enough money, he would move the whole family up there with him. But as they were having this big party celebrating the fact that James was supposed to be coming up there to get them, they get a letter from the pipeline saying that James died in an accident. The next episode is basically Florida going through the different stages of grief. Now, they have the funeral. Florida has not expressed any sort of grief at all in the whole thing, and it's really worrying the family. She's being brushed with the family. Was a Brusca, whatever. She's really being abrupt with the family, and like everybody's trying to figure out like what's going on. And finally, towards the end of the episode, she's all alone. She's in the house cleaning. Like they had this big party or whatever. A little funeral thing. She's cleaning up the front. She cleaned up the dishes. She has this giant punch bowl, and just all of a sudden, nowhere, she just slams it down and says the famous line, "Damn, damn, damn."
But I mean, again, for television, it's still just absolutely, again, because you have to look at everything in the context of when it came out, right?
Yes.
It is one of the most heavy, dramatic moments in broadcast television to that point in time, and it's visceral. It really is. I mean, you can feel, because I mean that's the thing, like. And that's what I appreciate about that episode, is that everybody expresses grief differently. Yeah. And it's perfect for her character, too, that she's trying to basically hold the whole family together. The whole weight of everything is now 100% on her.
But now that, she had that little moment to herself alone, and
she just finally expressed.
She just let it out. It was heartbreaking. Yeah. So heartbreaking.
But great television. I mean, definitely watch it. If you've never seen it, watch it now.
Good Times is such a great show, man. Like, definitely check out Good Times. That's definitely one of the spinoffs that did not fail.
For sure.
Oh my God. Like, syndication-wise, oh my God, it's one of the more popular TV shows ever. Yep. But, like, ever since I was a little kid, Good Times has been on somewhere everywhere.
It still is.
Yeah, exactly. And then they just had the recent thing, the special on ABC with All in the Family and Good Times. And they brought that back, and they brought back most of the original cast is still alive, you know what I'm saying? So it's crazy, man. Like, it's good. It's great TV show. Now, the next spinoff is probably the one you're talking about. Yeah. The Jeffersons. Moving on up to the east side. We finally got a piece of the pie. Feet on fire in the kitchen. I'm not going to the shit.
We could do this all that.
Oh yeah, but
Jeffersons is great.
But the Jeffersons were the second and the longest running spinoff of all the spinoffs from All in the Family. They actually ran for 11 years.
Should have gone for 20.
And ran for 11 years and 253 episodes. And actually surpassed All in the Family itself, because All in the Family ran for 9 seasons and 208 episodes. And actually, in terms of years run, is still the longest running black sitcom of all time. But in terms of episodes broadcast, the longest running black sitcom of all time is actually Tyler Perry's House of Pain.
Yeah, but Tyler Perry is just like, he's a production machine.
That was a production machine. So
he still is, man. I mean, the number of movies and I don't even.
They would come
I honestly
out, yeah.
don't know. Like, he's honestly the rate he's going.
Yeah.
I'm scared to death he's going to end up like Jim Henson. And his body's just going to shut down. Like, he's not going to have anything. Well, Jim had other problems, but you know what I'm saying. It's like that amount of work. Those 18-hour days. Oh my God, the guy. I'm always in awe whenever we talk about the amount of production that guy can get out.
But the Jefferson family itself first appeared on All in the Family. The first of the Jeffersons to actually get most airtime was actually their son, Lionel, played by Mike Evans. And he was a lovable character. He was Mike Stivett's best friend, so they would come over and hang out and shit. And he was constantly fucking with Archie, which made him even more popular because he would feed into Archie's bullshit, and just make him look, but feed it to him, be nice to him, but make him look stupid at the same time. Yeah. And it made Lionel a very likable character. And then after that, you actually met his parents, particularly his mother, Louise Jefferson, played by Isabel Sanford, the late Isabel Sanford. And she became friends with Edith. Yep. And then, of course, there was funny enough, George Jefferson is actually the last of the Jeffersons to appear on the show because of the fact that at the time, Norman Lear actually created the character of George Jefferson specifically for Sherman Hemsley. But Sherman Hemsley was on Broadway at the time on production of the show Pearly. So he had a commitment with that already. So in the interim between the end of Sherman's contract on Broadway, they created another character, Henry Jefferson, who was played by an actor, I believe his name was Mel Turner or something like that. But he was kind of like the stand-in for George Jefferson. He basically played George's brother. And he would come in and he would be the antagonist to Archie. You know what I'm saying? Like uber conservative, but from the black perspective. You know what I'm saying? So pretty much the same as Archie, just but from a black perspective. And him and Henry would get into it every once in a while. And then finally, when George was free, when Sherman was free, George Jefferson was introduced. Basically, they were introduced at in an episode, I believe, where it was Lionel's wedding, or his engagement to Jenny Willis. That was a backdoor pilot done on All in the Family, and that's when they first introduced George Jefferson.
Which, from a production or producing standpoint, it's brilliant because you're able to subsidize the cost of your soft pilot by rolling it into an existing product. So if it turns out that what you're hoping as far as market response ends up being shit, it didn't cost you anything. And you know what? It's just one more out of 200 whatever episodes for this kick-ass franchise. It's just printing money. Yeah. So it's a really smart way to go. It enables you to really make sure. That's the other thing too. You're really giving it a chance because if you've got All in the Family, primetime television, you guarantee the audience you want to see it is going to be watching it. Because a lot of these pilots, and this is all before the Fin-Sin rules. I'm not going to get down the weeds in that because that'll take for fucking ever. Yeah. But prior to that, you might just get a shitty executive or luck of the draw. You end up with the shit time slot, and they're trying to put you on, at like 10 a.m. on a Thursday, and none of the people you want to watch it are even available to watch it, and so you're going to lose out to the People's Court or whatever the hell was on back then. I don't even remember.
But what happened was they had that little storyline. It was successful. Of course, Archie was invited, and Archie was being Archie because of the fact that Lionel was marrying a girl who was half black, half white. So they would have both George and Archie were kind of together on this. They did not want that marriage to go down. But then after that, it became successful enough where they actually got their own show. The first episode of The Jeffersons, again, was on All in the Family, and it was actually them moving out. and it was Edith, and actually the sweetest moment of the episode was between Edith and Louise Jefferson. And Edith was just like, getting her stuff together. You got everything, being Edith. But then she stops. She's like, "Do you know how much I love? Have I ever told you how much I love you?" And Louise says, "Every single moment we sing together." And then they have a sweet moment and they hug. And then, of course, George being George, he has somewhat of a tender moment. He's like, "Look, I finally got us out of here. We're leaving now. We're like, I did this for you, for our family. Let's get out of here. We're leaving Bunkersville." That's what he always called it, Bunkersville. And then they move out. And the first episode of Jeffersons on All in the Family, and then in the high-rise apartment, they got Mr. Bentley, and they got and then the first episode was them hiring Florence. Yeah. And then they have the interviews and all this stuff. And then of course the ending of that episode was the kicker of it. Like, so wait a minute, y'all live in this apartment? Yeah. Yeah, white folks working for y'all? Yeah. Well, when did we did we overcome and nobody told me? So that was the kicker of the last episode. And then, of course, the Jeffersons went on to be a very successful sitcom in itself. And the Jeffersons is another one that had a spinoff of a spinoff that a lot of people don't know. It was a spinoff called Checking In, and it was basically focused on their maid, Florence, played by Marla Gibbs. Now, what it was is that Marla had left the Jeffersons, and now Florence was working at a place called the St. Frederick Hotel in Manhattan as the executive housekeeper. It only lasted 4 weeks. It lasted all of 1981, and then the character went back to the Jeffersons for the rest of the run, which ended in 1985.
Which, I mean, it's great for to look at it as far as a performer that at least you still had a home to go back to. Because most pilots, when you don't make it, when you're unfortunate enough to end up on the cutting room floor, as they say. You're out there going, shit, now I need another job, and you're out applying.
There's another example on another popular show, which we're going to get into a little bit later. Now, the next spinoff is not really a spinoff. It's actually a continuation of All in the Family. In 1979, they decided to change up All in the Family. So what happened was, storyline-wise, Archie Bunker would always hang out at this one little tavern or whatever. So Archie eventually got enough money where he bought it. And then he became the proprietor of that particular establishment, and it became Archie Bunker's place. Now, what happened was, towards the end of the show, Edith passed away.
Yeah.
And it had a very sweet moment where Carol O'Connor's Archie is alone in his room with Edith's bed, and he's just like talking about, I mistreated you, you were so good to me, and I miss you so much, and I'm always going to love you. And then he actually adopted this little girl named Stephanie. Now, Gloria's moved out. Mike and Gloria have moved out. Edith's dead. Now all he has is his friends and this little girl now. So that basically became the focus of the show. It became Archie Bunker's place, and it lasted for another 4 seasons, from 1979 to 1983. And now their last episode was in April 1983. So they extended another 4 years out of All in the Family.
Well, and it makes sense that it would be him too, because he was by far, as we talked about before, the most popular character.
Yeah, and then after that, Gloria.
Although technically, you can make an argument that the Jeffersons were the most popular characters because they had the longest run out there of anything.
And they surpassed the original show.
That's what I'm saying. So technically, I guess maybe I should make an adjustment, say. Of the primary cast, he was the most popular.
Yes. Okay. Now, going to what I was about to say before you fucking interrupted me.
Before I threw off your...
Yeah. The next spinoff, the third spinoff, was Gloria, which focused on Gloria Bunker, Stivic, or whatever. Actually, she, at this point, was actually divorced. They had a storyline where Mike left her and decided to go to, join a nudist colony. So
I could see him doing that.
I could see him doing that too. So what happened was she became this assistant trainee for a couple of veterinarians in Foxridge, New York, and that was her new life with her and her son. And now as a divorcee, again, that only lasted a season.
Which the one thing we're kind of glossing over, because the one thing you've got to give to everything that broke out and came out of All in the Family was it was always extremely cutting edge from a cultural standpoint. If I'm not mistaken, that was the first time you had a show where the leading actor or actress in this case was a divorcee.
Guess what? That's
You've had single mothers in the past, but they were
True.
they were always widows.
Yeah, true.
This was one of the this was one of, if not the first
well,
show.
she was a
divorcee.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I'll give you that.
Which, I mean, that's crazy.
That's cool.
Because what year was that? Like 81?
82 to 83.
See, and that's crazy. I mean, it took that long.
True. I'll give you that.
Because people have been divorcing each other since before this country was around.
Exactly. So
I mean, shit. King of England, had a really gross way of divorcing them. Usually involved the beheading. But
the guillotine. Yeah.
Yeah, this shit's been going on since the beginning of time.
Now, the last spinoff of All in the Family is actually the more interesting one. It's called 704 Hauser, and this was in 1994.
I don't know this one.
Exactly. So this was basically done by the guys, Norman Lear and a couple other people. So what they did was they took the idea of a black family moving into Archie Bunker's house.
Okay.
Now, what happened was they decided to switch the narrative of All in the Family with this new show. So it basically now be a black family with a conservative husband. And now they have a daughter they have a son who has a Jewish daughter, who has a Jewish
girlfriend?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, white Jewish girlfriend. And actually, funny enough, Gloria and her son Joey actually make an appearance on the show in the first episode. So it connects it to All in the Family.
That's an interesting concept.
Yeah, and it only lasted 5 episodes, and they only aired between April and May of 1994.
And again, we're not going to get into the weeds on it, but if my math or time line is correct, that's post the repeal of the Fin-Sin rules, which I believe is in like 82, 83. Might have even been a little bit later in the 80s. So that probably had something to do with it.
Probably.
But anyway, that's the economics of it.
Yeah, but those are all the spinoffs of All in the Family. Another show that had an extensive amount of spinoffs, Happy Days.
Yes, it did.
and Happy Days in itself is actually a spinoff of one episode of Love American Style. Where it featured the Cunningham family. Yeah,
I didn't even realize that.
It was Love American Style. It was one episode. It was Archie. It was Richie Cunningham and his family, Ron Howard, and it had the Fonz on it. And just one episode, but it was so popular that it spun off to its own show.
Now, one thing we're going to throw in here, just real quick before we get into the spinoffs, because it's appropriate.
Yeah,
there's a term that gets thrown around a lot. And I don't know if everybody knows where it comes from, but jumping the shark.
We'll get to that.
And I just want to make sure we cover that because this is a really great moment as far as helping people understand some of the jargon and terminology because everybody's always scared shitless when you're running a show of jumping the shark.
Yeah. Okay, now what he's referring to in terms of jumping the shark, Happy Days in this time was one of the more popular shows on television.
I mean, it was right up there with All in the Family.
Yes, it was.
I mean,
yes,
it was top tier.
And it had all these characters and Richie Cunningham, the Cunningham family, Joni, and the most...
Joni loves Chachi.
Which we'll get into that. And the most popular character was Henry Winkler as Arthur Fonzarelli, the Fonz.
Hey.
And he was the coolest character on television ever, pretty much. And what he's referring to
that
is...
leather jacket was badass.
Yeah, leather jacket is in the Smithsonian.
It should be.
That's how badass it is. But the one episode he's referring to is one episode where Fonzie, doing this crazy stunt, decides to jump a shark tank.
On his motorcycle.
And it succeeds. Did he succeed? I think
I honestly don't remember. So the whole point to why jumping the shark is a thing, it essentially refers to a point in time where a show has outlived its relevance in culture.
When it gets to the point where they jumping sharks on motorcycles.
They're doing outrageous stuff to try to maintain viewership.
And that was actually, the jumping the shark was... To many people, it was the beginning of the end.
Well, and I mean, if I remember correctly, and don't quote me on it 100%, but I think that was one of their lesser viewed episodes, and that was when they realized, like, oh shit, okay, we took it too far. Because there's always, whenever you do a show, there's always a contract with the audience that you've set boundaries, whatever they are. Like I've talked about before when it comes to movies or whatever with me, the suspension of disbelief or whatever.
Yeah.
We could do, I mean, it's not one of my favorite shows. I don't totally get it, but like Battlestar Galactica, they've got a weird set of fucking rules.
Yeah.
But they stayed inside of them, and the people who love that show, they love it to the end, and it's just kick-ass and it's good to go. But you end up with something like a network show like The Office, I'll go with, because I love like the first 4 or 5 seasons of The Office. I thought was great. By the time you get to the end, now all of a sudden we have the camera crews making appearances, and we're explaining what the fuck was actually going on. You've gone too far, and the audience has decided, you know what? I'm out.
Yeah. All right. Now, like I said, Happy Days was an immensely popular show, and of course, it had very memorable characters. The first spin-off of Happy Days was Laverne and Shirley, with Penny Marshall and Cindy Williams as the aforementioned Laverne and Shirley. They started out as friends of the Fonz. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they appeared on Happy Days, and they would find themselves in adventures with the Fonz and Lenny and Squiggy and the Cunningham family.
Which was great for Henry Winkler because now he had 2 shows.
And they all lived in the same city. So, and then of course the beginning of her Laverne and Shirley, they doing the little Yiddish little saying like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, Schlemiel, Schlemazel, Hassan Pfeffer Incorporated. We're gonna do it. We're gonna make our dreams come true, doing it our way.
That's actually one of the things that's great about TV shows from the 70s into the 80s.
They had great theme songs.
They had great, ridiculous theme songs that, honestly, it puts you into, I mean, obviously, if you watch it now, puts you into a time and place. Like, you watch House of Cards, right? The opening to House of Cards, it's dark, it's brooding. Yeah. You can't sing along with that. I mean, there's no words, right? Yeah. But, dude, you go to these classic sitcoms.
We're gonna make our dreams come true.
Dude, it's the best.
We're doing our way, this our way. Make all our dreams come true. Just me and you.
The best. The absolute best of the multicam.
Yes.
It's this era.
Yeah. Laverne and Shirley was the first one, and then, of course, they went on to have their own adventures. Eventually, they actually moved to L.A. in the show's later years. Yeah. And Laverne and Shirley lasts from 1976 to 1983. And they had a lot of crossovers with Happy Days, of course. One particular episode was a Shotgun Wedding, which actually the first part, a good one. The first part was actually on Happy Days. The second part was on Laverne and Shirley. So,
which again, from a producerial standpoint, it's brilliant because they always set cliffhangers. You got to come back and watch the same show. But if you own both shows, let's make sure we got them watching both shows.
Okay, and then the next spinoff of Happy Days is one that a lot of people don't know about: Blonsky's Beauties.
Yeah, I'm in the don't know category.
Yeah, it starred Nancy Walker as a former showgirl named Nancy Blonsky. Apparently, she appeared on Happy Days as a cousin of Howard Cunningham. So she's a Cunningham, and apparently Scott Baio actually starred on Blonsky's Beauties before he was on Happy Days, and also they actually had Pat Morita do Arnold on Blonsky's Beauties. So yeah, it's a really weird show. But
what's a showgirl?
Yeah, we know what a showgirl is.
But I don't know. I am shocked.
But it's like the shortest of the spinoffs. It only lasted one season, 1977. Now the next spinoff is actually my personal favorite. Mork and Mindy.
Oh, yeah.
Mork and fucking Mindy. I used to love Mork. It's the one, I watched like a little bit of all the spinoffs, but this is the one I actually watched all the way through. I watched all the episodes of Mork and Mindy. I loved Mork and Mindy, bro. That shit was so great, man. I know. I used to love that shit.
I mean, how can you not love someone with Robin Williams?
Robin fucking Williams. Now, Robin as Mork from Ork made his first appearance on Happy Days. And actually, the name of the episode was My Favorite Orkin, like as a play on My Favorite Martian.
Yeah.
And the whole get down was he's on the show. Mork has come down to Earth to study humans and take one human back with him for examination. The human he picks is Richie Cunningham. Now,
why wouldn't you?
Now, as a result, it leads to my favorite episode of Happy Days, where they have a swag off between the Fonz and Mork from Mork, because how the Fonz will just hit like a jukebox and it would turn on, or he hit some some shit would be moving, he do some shit and make it stop.
Yeah.
So it's him and Ork, and Ork is using like telekinetic powers and shit, and the Fonz is just using the Fonz shit, and they're having the swag off, and it's so fucking dope. And the Fonz ends up beating Mork. And what happens?
He has to. He's the Fonz.
Yeah. And what happens is, freaking Mork eventually goes away. But on the show, they explained it away as a dream that Richie was having. But the performance was so goddamn popular that they decided to freaking bring back Mork. And they decided to bring it from 1950s to modern day 1970s, Boulder, Colorado. So Mork is back from Ork. He had the fucking egg spaceship,
yeah,
and giant egg or whatever, and he meets Mindy, and Mindy McConnell. That's her name, played by Pam Dauber.
Yeah,
and she was basically the straight woman to Robin Williams' fucking antics, man, for like a number of years, bro. From 1978 to 1982, bro. And they did all kinds of stuff. And I remember the story of the casting of Robin Williams as Mork. Apparently, he went into Gary Marshall's office for this role. and he told him that you were playing the alien, and Gary told him Robin to sit down, and he went over to the chair and sat on it with his head, and he said as soon as he saw that, he was like, "You're hired.
That's
you're hired. You're hired." And he's like, "You know what? I picked him because he was the only alien that actually showed up."
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? He was.
Yes, he was.
He was absolutely an alien talent.
Was. Exactly. So, but what happened was because they decided to bring the character back. The whole dream thing that Richie had, they got rid of that and they tacked on a new ending and explained that Mork came back and shit. So, but yeah, Mork stayed on Earth and, he had his little adventures with Mindy and they would have like little alien adventures and shit. Yeah. And it was a really great show. And of course, it's Robin Williams.
I mean, how can you not?
It's Robin Williams doing his thing, man. And then like he would like just go on his flights of fancy, which I like to say, flights of fancy. But he would always bring it back to the script. But other than that, he would just go fucking nuts.
There was a I don't know how real this was, if this was a setup, but there was what was reported or purported to have been basically uncut footage of him working with, I can't remember the director's name, on a commercial, and he just kept improv. It's like a 6 or 7 minute, might even be longer, 7 minute long video on YouTube of him just fully Robin Williams. I mean, there's no other way to describe it than that.
My favorite episode of Mork and Mindy actually is one episode where he actually meets Robin Williams.
Oh, yeah?
Mork meets Robin Williams, and it's really cool because Robin has himself is really downplayed, but Mork is like real Robin Williams.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Shit. Well, real Robin's like, hello, nice to meet you. Real downplayed. It's really cool. And also another really great storyline they had was Mork had a baby. And he actually laid an egg, and the egg grew to like human size, and the baby turned out to be Jonathan Winters.
I must have missed that episode.
It was because it's like Robin Williams and Jonathan Winters just riffing for like 2 episodes straight, man. Like it's so cool, man.
Did you ever see The Birdcage?
Yeah.
Dude, that scene when he's directing that the scene downstairs with oh god, why am I blanking on his name?
Nathan Lane.
With Nathan Lane and the the young hunk.
No, I forgot his name.
I don't know the young hunk's name, but I don't think he's done anything except for that. But nothing where his name was on the marquee anyway. Right. But when he's explaining, okay, so you do a Martha Graham. Oh, yeah, or do Twyla. You do an exotic celebration of a dance, but you keep it all inside. Like, he's just over the top, ridiculous, and such a great physical comedian.
Yes, he was.
It's basically... When I think about physical comedians of the last maybe 20, 30 years, it's basically him and Jim Carrey.
True.
Because there's a ton of great comedians out there, but there's very few
that use the physicality.
That are physical. Yeah, I mean, most of them... I mean, that's one of the reasons why that movie, 10,000 Words, I just hated the concept from the word go. Yeah. Eddie Murphy is a great
1,000
verbal
words.
comedian.
1,000 words, and like he's like the tree.
Yeah, he can't. He's only allowed to say a certain number of words. And it's like, no, this is a Jim Carrey movie. Jim Carrey's a guy who's going to be over the top with his body. Let Eddie Murphy talk. The dude is hilarious. Yeah. But anyway, that's sorry for the aside. I just we're talking about him.
All right, now the last actual spinoff of Happy Days is the one we love the most, but not for the reason you would think. Joni loves Chachi.
And I love it specifically because of Ben Stiller. It's all Ben Stiller.
Joni loves Chachi. Yeah. But
for those of us who don't know the reference, it's from Dodgeball.
Yes, it was. But the actual show itself is actually takes 2 characters from Happy Days, Richie Cunningham's sister Joni, and the Fonz's cousin Chachi. And they put them together in a romantic relationship, and they leave Happy Days land to go to Chicago to try to make it as musicians. Now, keep in mind, they completely forgot what era and time frame they were actually in while they were doing the show. Yeah. Because, the show is supposed to be set in the 1950s, but they're singing like they have 70s style clothes, they have 70s style hair, and they're singing soft rock ballads that would be like Christopher Cross or Kenny Loggins.
You don't think people in the 50s would have liked Cher?
I'm pretty sure.
Or Sonny Bono?
No, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have. But freaking, they were singing that kind of stuff. They completely forgot what time frame they were in. And friggin', what happened was they canceled the show because of low ratings. But what they did was they kept sporadically putting it in to weird time frames, so it never really caught on because they kept switching it around the schedule.
Well, it's because they had a lack of That lack of clarity on that, but that's what we were talking about before. The fin-sin rules, all that kind of shit going on. There's so much that's out of your control in the economics. You can't even find your audience sometimes.
Yeah, it only lasted one season, 1982 to 1983.
Because that's the real positive thing about streaming now, right?
Yeah.
Somebody tells you, "Hey, I like this show. You like that show." You go home, you just watch it.
Yeah, and then one thing that actually is unique of Happy Days, they actually had 3 cartoon spinoffs.
Okay, I did not know about the cartoon spinoffs.
They had cartoon spinoffs. The Fonz and the Happy Days gang, Laverne and Shirley and the Army, and Mork and Mindy the cartoon. And funny thing about it is, all 3 cartoons had all the original actors.
You know what? Mork and Mindy the cartoon makes sense. Out of everything, that makes the most sense.
He actually had like an alien dog. It's pretty much the same show, but he had an alien dog.
Well, yeah, you can do more when you're dealing with animation.
And then actually what it is they switched it to make them a little bit younger, so they're college students together.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but the same thing. They would have like one lump show where it's like the Fonz, the Laverne and Shirley, the Mork and Mindy show. They like the Mork and Mindy. They did like 1 big hour of television together as cartoons. And like I said, all the original same actors: Henry Winkler, Robin Williams, Penny Marshall, all those people. They did the cartoon. And they actually had 2 pilots that didn't take off: the Ralph and Potsy show and the Pinky Tuscadero show. They didn't take off for some reason.
That didn't take off?
Yeah, apparently
I'm surprised. I'm shocked.
I'm sure you are. Now, another spinoff we're going to go to is actually one we've mentioned on the show a few times now. Family Matters, being a spinoff of Perfect Strangers, which ran from 1986 to 1993 on ABC. It was the first show on the famous TGIF lineup. It was Perfect Strangers. Now, it was the lead-in to all the other shows that came after it. Now, Harriet Winslow first appeared on Perfect Strangers as the elevator operator of the building they were in, the Chicago Chronicle. And eventually Carl, her husband, showed up a couple seasons later. I think in the 4th season is an episode called Crime Busters. Carl showed up. And apparently how he described the dialogue was that Harriet and Carl lived in the same apartment building as Balky and Larry. Yeah, which is weird. But then eventually they got their own place or whatever. Now...
Well, what year was this?
This is like late 80s.
Because I mean, again, maybe there was something going on prior to us getting here to this planet.
Yeah.
Elevator operator?
Yeah, she back in the day, they would have a person.
I have only one time seen an elevator operator, and that is only when it's absolutely batshit crazy over at Hollywood and Highland when they're loading in the Oscars.
Yeah.
And they literally have that person there just to make sure that people can get off, because he's literally paid to stand, that person, him or her, because it's been both when I've been there, literally paid there to keep the door open so you can unload all of your gear.
Yeah.
But short of that, I don't who the hell has an elevator operator?
Back in the day,
push a button.
Back in the day, they were commonplace. They actually had an elevator operator.
Doorman makes sense. People still have doorman.
Yeah, but still, she was the elevator operator on the show
for the 80s.
And then eventually, she became such a popular character that she spun off to her own show, Family Matters. Her and Carl. Now, there's a lot of people. Like I said, a lot of people don't realize the spinoff is actually based around Harriet initially, but. When the first season of the show, it was okay at best. Didn't really do anything. But with the appearance of a annoying, accident-prone, budding inventor next-door neighbor named Steve Urkel, played by Jaleel White, who was introduced midway through the first season, that show blew up because of that one goddamn character. And then the focus switched from the family, which is Harriet and Carl, to Steve Urkel. And it worked.
Did he do that?
He did that. Now, there was never an actual official crossover between Perfect Strangers and Family Matters, even though Balky and Larry were actually scripted to premiere in the first episode, but they never did.
Huh.
And funny enough...
I think it's better it didn't.
Yeah. And then funny enough, the dude that played Larry and Larry also had a girlfriend on the show played by an actress named Melanie Wilson. They both appeared on Family Matters as different characters.
Really?
And I do remember the girlfriend specifically playing the talk show host because there's like a local talk show in Chicago where all the family appeared on the show. It was like Eddie, Laura, Steve, Myra, and all the love triangle that's going on. And it's all the different Steve Urkel characters. It was Steve as Steve himself, Steve as Stefan, Steve is Myrtle Urkel. Like they're all on the same show. It's so weird. It's like Jerry Springer style, but it was so funny. I forgot the other character that Larry played, but he and another thing, they also took a lot of some of the first season episodes of Family Matters were actually recycled episodes of Perfect Strangers.
Yeah.
They just recycled it with a family.
Well, if you own it, you own it.
Yeah, exactly. So
It's a simple rewrite.
but yeah, like I said, Steve Urkel came on that show and it went to a whole nother direction, and it became a very successful show. It's actually the second longest running black sitcom after The Jeffersons.
Yep.
Yeah, so
It's still great to this day. Look, even though we want to,
that's another one.
Even though you want to poke fun,
Yeah.
and have a little fun with the whole Steve Urkel thing and his ridiculous laugh that he came up with and all of that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Did I do that and all of that?
Dude.
It's great.
My first crush on television.
Steve Urkel.
No, fuck you. No, my first crush on television was Myra Boutros Monkhouse, played by the late Michelle Thomas. She was
Boutros Ghali.
that was her. Yeah, that was her. Myra Boutros Monkhouse. But I had such a huge crush on Myra because number one, she's pretty and so sweet, and she had really big titties. And that's kind of my thing. That's kind of my thing, folks, in case you're not noticing the trend here. But like, she was so beautiful and so pretty. And actually,
No judgment.
And actually, funny enough, she was actually dating Malcolm Jamal Warner at the time of her death.
Really?
Yeah, and they actually had a long relationship. She actually, one of her first major roles was actually on the Cosby Show. She played she played Theo's girlfriend Justine.
Okay.
And she was like the girlfriend for the better part of a season. So, and she would always be interacting with the family, and her and Theo would break up a bunch of times, that kind of shit. But that was the first thing I saw her on. And she actually did a couple episodes of a Man Called Hog and TV shows like that back in the day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, she actually passed away in the late 90s from stomach cancer, I believe.
Yeah, it's a rough one.
And Malcolm Jamal Warner was actually there with her when she passed. So, but she was a wonderful young actress, and you know what I'm saying? Like I said, I loved her on the show. And then they've done a lot of reunion things lately with the cast of Family Matters, particularly Eddie, Laura, and Waldo. They've been doing there's been a lot of pictures with those three, like at Comic Cons and shit like that. People are loving it, man. Like, cause I see the picture all over the place.
One of the things you can see, especially with network television right now, right? So if you want new content, new content is almost exclusively the domain of the streamers, right? I mean, you got some stuff coming around like The Neighborhood, right, of Cedric. A few of these different, where they're trying to kind of nibbling around the edges a little bit, but it's always more, multicam, kind of traditional kinds of stuff. So most of the really new, top of the line kind of comment or content rather, it's actually the domain of streaming. And what you're seeing, if you watch across the board with all of the broadcasters, everything that they're bringing back right now, everything that they're promoting, everything they're actually putting money and time into is really banking on nostalgia.
Yeah.
So whether you talk about even the way that they're remaking all of the Disney films, if you want to go on the feature side, or like you said, bringing back Family Matters, even if they're doing one night only special events, those sorts of things, that's where those guys are finding the money. And here's the even better part. The producers, they know everybody over there because, look, Hollywood's a super small town. It's a super small industry. I mean, maybe if you want to include all the people below the line, maybe 10,000 people really work in the industry on a regular basis, if even that. I mean, the people that are making decisions, it's like a big high school. Yeah. It's like maybe 5,000 people that are really doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so it would make sense that you would lean into, okay, I already, I know Norman Lear or whoever it is, and you go with that direction. It's one phone call.
I can attest to that. Hollywood, even young black Hollywood, is very cliquish. Like, people have certain people that they deal with only, and you try to get in there, but I don't know you, and et cetera. It's very cliquish, so you gotta.
But the one thing I'm gonna say in defense of it, because I'm like you, I'm still trying to figure out where I'm gonna get my foot in the door so we can make the next step, especially when it comes to the creative content side of stuff. Because I'm still working all the behind the scenes stuff. You're still doing a lot more of the, for lack of a better word, they always say paying your dues, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
When it comes to being in a production, when it comes to making a movie or because I've done a couple of those low level behind the scenes shit, there's so much that goes wrong in any production that you do. I mean, you move to something like television where if this thing picks up, we're looking at potentially 10, if we're lucky, 6 to 10 years of working together. People want to go with known quantities. So it's like, even if you look at something like, what's his name from, oh God, my brain just went away. Tom Sizemore. You look at Tom Sizemore. Tom Sizemore, he had a problem, really big problem a little while back.
Mm-hmm.
It burned a lot of bridges. Or even you can go with Mickey Rourke.
Yeah.
Burned a lot of bridges when they went out.
Mm-hmm.
Took him a little bit to get back in, but once he came back in, either one of those guys, and they did 2 things. They showed, okay, I'm back on track. I'm handling it. They're a known quantity again.
Best example of that, Downey Jr.
Yeah, Robert Downey Jr. is
RDJ,
a fantastic, probably the best.
Yeah, like
right, because he slammed into the bottom, into the floor.
Jesus Christ.
And he came back. And actually, one of the guys who's had probably a little more, if we're going to be generous, I'd say maybe checkered experience in the more recent history.
Ooh.
Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
He actually bonded him to get his first movie back because nobody would touch him.
Yeah.
So when you have that known quantity, when you know the person's personality, most importantly, especially with the behind the scenes or the content creation side, you know that person, their work ethic or whatever. It's like maybe this person's 80% of what your ideal would be, but you know you have 80%. A lot of people find a sense of security in that because they know, okay, I know whatever the hell else goes wrong when we're making this movie, whatever weather gets thrown at us, whatever financial issues we might run into, I know I can count on this person to be that 80%. It's very attractive versus, hey, here's this new person who showed up who might be 100%, but they might be 40%. You know, so that's kind of where that part of it rolls into it. So that's the only thing I'm going to say in defense of the nepotism.
Gotcha. Now,
because you and I, we're going to work together.
You know,
we know what to expect working with each other.
Exactly. So, since we actually brought up the Cosby Show a little bit with Michelle Thomas, the Cosby Show. Yeah.
Oh, Bill.
I know, freaking like the Cosby Show at one point was the show on television. It was actually the #1 television show. Of this 7 years it was on the air, 5 of those years it was #1 in the ratings.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look. Here's the thing. And this is what you always run into when you're talking about art versus the artist.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you want to roll it back, let's go way back. To, for example, like Monet or Manet, right? If we're going to start talking about or Pizarro, like all of the great impressionists, I don't think you can find one of them where you go, man, that person lived a wonderful and amazing life, and they were just great people all the time. There's a lot of really bad shit that people do because people are people, and this isn't in defense of Bill Cosby in the horrible shit that we now know was going on.
Yeah.
But if we're gonna take a second and step back from the artist and look at just the art.
We're just looking at the Cosby Show itself. Now, at the time, the Cosby Show was meant to be an aspirational show, particularly for African American people. Now, it depicted the Huxtable family, a well-to-do black family in New York, in Brooklyn specifically. And you had Cliff Huxtable, the husband, who was an OBGYN. I'm not going to go delve deeper into that.
Which, now knowing what we know, ironic.
Very, very ironic, yeah. And then Claire was a lawyer. And, he had the 5 children, and then they had the grandchildren, and everybody was coming to the house. And then, and people were talking about the Cosby Show, like, oh my God, like every black family's like that. Like, I'm from a black family. Our family is nothing like that.
But then again, I mean, like I said, you can look at, if you want to go down that road, you can pick whatever you think the most aspirational white family is. You can see on TV.
Leave It to Beaver or some shit like that.
I've never met that family.
What's other shit? The Patty Duke Show.
Yeah, I mean, minus the meth sales, I'd say most of the families, black or white, are probably a lot closer to Breaking Bad.
My 3 sons.
Yeah, they're hanging on for dear life, trying to figure out how the hell to make it through the next payday.
All right, now, like I said, the Cosby Show was uber popular at the time. Now, the Cosby Show produced its own spinoff, A Different World. Well, A Different World ran from 1987 to 1993. Now, the producers of The Cosby Show created the spinoff specifically around Denise Huxtable, Lisa Bonet. Now, at the time, Lisa had a little bit of a controversy going herself because she is starred in the movie Angel Heart with Robert De Niro and Mickey Rourke, and one of the more graphic scenes in the movie pertains to a sex scene between her and Mickey Rourke. And it's like blood, and she's topless, and it's very strange and very weird, but Bill, being who he was at the time, wanted to preserve the family aesthetic of the Cosby Show. So having one of the daughters topless in a movie was not really, good to go.
Well, he's making decisions at that point, not as an artist, but as a businessman.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, here's the thing. He was a producer on the show, too. And it's the real sad thing about this, when you look at it, just for a half second on the economic side, there was a lot of talent in that show from beginning to end that had back end deals that should be getting paid, should be making money now.
Yeah.
But because we all found out that Dr. Cosby wasn't Dr. Huxtable.
Yeah, a lot of networks yanked the fucking Cosby Show off.
Not only the networks yank it, but I mean, I'm not. Are you aware of a streamer that has it?
No.
I mean, there's
no
nothing. So
no streaming. Yeah, no streaming service.
Those people aren't getting paid no more.
I know Hulu has a different world.
Well, which you know what? It's understandable.
Yeah.
Because when you look at it in hindsight and the totality of history and time, it's like, well, you know, I mean, it's more about context too. Because that's one of the things that's frustrating. If you look at the 80s and 90s, context didn't mean anything. It was all about the what was it, especially when it comes to those controversies.
Yeah. But going back to the actual show itself, like I said, because of the controversy of that, he wanted to keep Lisa, but also keep her away from the show, the main show, as much as possible. So he gave her this other show, A Different World. Yeah. The initial season of A Different World was focused mainly around Denise Huxtable. She was the main character, and all the other ancillary characters, Dwayne Wayne and Whitley Gilbert, and and Jaleesa and all those other people, they kind of they were supporting people. Now, during that initial run. Lisa Bonet got pregnant by her then boyfriend, later husband, Lenny Kravitz.
Oh no.
Yeah. And like Bill was not keen on having a show depicting a pregnant black woman, single black woman in college. So he,
you have to say there's something ironic about somebody who is so obsessed with appearances, because you can also roll this over. You look at just the way he treated Eddie Murphy. Yeah. And I mean, just the way he was in general when it came down to a lot of young black performers.
Yeah.
The guy, I mean, it makes sense when you think about it, because, if you're that level of a predator, you want everyone thinking that you are Dr. Huxtable. You don't want anyone looking, and if anybody says anything, you want to make sure they go, oh, not Dr. Huxtable.
Yeah, another great story is actually like Damon Wayans tells like how when he was doing his show, My Wife and Kids, he went to Bill Cosby for advice. Now, Bill loved Damon. He hated Sean Marlon. And he constantly chastised, particularly Marlon, because Marlon would do all the physical comedy with he would do the stuff where you catch his foot and shit like
money.
That. Yeah, all that, all that physical humor that Marlon did, he hated. He thought he was being, being a clown, being a stereotype. That's what he was. But
he wasn't. He was he is a hell of a comedian.
Yes, he is actually. So there is that. But the actual show itself followed Denise Huxtable's adventures at a fictional college called Hillman. Hillman College. Hillman was first mentioned on the Cosby Show in I think the fifth season of the fifth episode of the first season, and it's depicted as the college that Cliff Huxtable graduated from, Claire Huxtable graduated from there, and the Grandpa Russell graduated from there. And there were several episodes of the Cosby Show that depicted Hillman before they actually had A Different World. They had a reunion, this big reunion at Hillman where Russell was in a parade, and they had this inaugural thing because apparently the president of Hillman was retiring, and the president knew Cliff and Claire and all this stuff. So they had a big ceremony at Hillman on the Cosby Show, and the main thing about it is to get the whole idea of the historically black college out there. That's the first show to actually depict that lifestyle.
Howard or Tuskegee or something.
Yeah, exactly. Particularly, Hillman was based on Morehouse College and Spelman College, both in Atlanta. Okay. One is male, one is female. And also, I think certain parts of, Clark Atlanta is another school that they based it on. The exteriors that they would show on A Different World were actually Howard.
Really? Okay. Because I remember there was a connection.
And the actual area that they depict Hillman as being is kind of in the DMV, in the Virginia, Maryland area. So it's basically Howard. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, they had that, that black college experience. So they had step in and, different relationships, dealing with racism and all the different things, as young black people, and, activism and all the different things and stuff they would do on the show. Now, after Denise left the first season, they changed up the direction of the show because they had a good show. It was a run, the lead-in show was the Cosby Show, so it had great ratings. So they changed up the direction of the show when they brought on Debbie Allen as the main director of the show, and they changed the whole get down. All the supporting characters became the main characters now, Dwayne Wayne and Whitley Gilbert, and they added, Ron Johnson and Freddie and Sinbad and all them other people and shit. And funny enough, a great fact, a lot of the cast members of In Living Color made guest appearances on A Different World before In Living Color came about. Keenan played a professor. David Allen Greer played a professor. Kim Wans was one of the students.
I didn't realize that so many of those guys were on there.
Yeah, it's crazy when you look at it. Like, is that Kim Wans? Yeah, yeah. She's like one of the students in like the female like dorm or whatever.
Right.
She stayed with Denise and Whitley and all them people. So it's crazy, right? But like I said, it went on to become its own show, and it ran from 1987 to 1993. Now, the most memorable episodes I remember of A Different World, a few of them. One of them featured an attempted date rape, which actually was, and then funny enough, it actually starred Timok, the dude from Last Dragon, Bruce Leroy. He was the guy. Yeah. He was like this handsome guy, but he had a tendency to be physical with women. Now he got into a relationship with the character Freddie. Dwayne Wayne knew of the guy's reputation and said, "No, this is a horrible idea. He's going to try to get to you." Now they have a scene towards the end of the episode where they have Freddie and the guy like going to like make out point or some bullshit like that. They're in the car, and of course he tries to take advantage of her. Dwayne, knowing this might happen, followed them and actually saves her. Saves her from being raped.
Kind of a Back to the Future.
Yeah, he saves her from being raped and shit. And then of course the guy eventually gets found out and expelled. Another episode dealing with domestic abuse again. It was one of the younger characters they had. Like the older characters became like professors and they graduated and shit. And they had these new generation. One of which was Jada Pinkett.
Jada Pinkett was on?
Jada Pinkett was on A Different World.
I didn't see that.
That's like her first major thing was on A Different World.
Huh.
And
hell of a start.
Yeah, and then there's a couple other people with her, and one of the characters was like dating this like DJ at the local radio station, but he was physically abusive, and the girl would not like go to the police or whatever. All the other people knew who he was. He was like this no down dude, and then finally she at the last episode like because he's like bullying her the whole time, and like the cops came like nobody's gonna press charges, right? And then the girl's like, I am. And that was the hero moment for the girl, and he got arrested and that good stuff. So that was a great episode. And really the most famous episode of A Different World is the wedding episode, which is basically Whitley gets married to this like would-be senator named Byron or something like that, played by what's his name, Joe Morton. Yeah, and like thing about it is she was madly in love with Dwayne Wayne, but he wasn't really going nowhere in terms of like his life at that time. He was just a struggling guy, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But she really loved him. He really loved her. But she decides to go with this other guy because he's affluent. Her mother wants it. All that other shit.
It's basically the opposite of the way it looks in Coming to America.
Exactly. And then they have this big wedding ceremony. And during the wedding ceremony, then there's like this little sequence during the wedding ceremony where everybody she looks at looks like Dwayne. And like, because like, that's who she's fixated on. Yep. And then finally Dwayne decides to man up and say at the wedding, like, if there's anybody who wishes this wedding not to happen, please speak now, forever hold your peace. Dwayne does the but then he like kind of mans up like, Whitney, I love you with all my heart. And then all the groomsmen come down trying to take him away, like no, like he's fighting them off, like no, I love you with all my heart. Will you marry me? I love you so much. Like, baby, please. She's like, I do, to him.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, she said it. She said I do, but to who? And then you see it's very clearly to Dwayne. And then she looks at Byron and she's like, I'm sorry. And then she runs into Dwayne's arms and they had the big wedding. They had the big little moment or whatever. And then right at that moment, it's like, oh, somebody get married today? Right here. So Dwayne and Willie go up there and they had this little quick shotgun wedding or whatever, and he kisses her. And the mother is outraged, like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. And he's like, hey, Mom. And she faints, and then it's a great episode. It's like the best episode. It's the definitive A Different World episode
for sure.
Yeah. All right. So next one, this is one that's gonna be a little different.
Okay.
I think you can roll with this.
Hey, I'm rolling with everything. I like that we went deep too. We started with all the things.
Yeah. So this is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Hey, wait. Before we go too far.
Yeah.
When I was in grad school,
yes, I'm listening.
I was renting a room in a townhouse. One of my roommates, who ended up renting the room a little bit later, he was a classical guitarist. That's what he did to try to make a living. Now he's probably, I was in my 20s, he was probably in early 40s.
Okay.
This dude, back in the day when it was on TV, he used to do Power Ranger episodes, and he'd do Power Ranger episodes as the bad guy, and he'd do the martial arts and stuff and get his ass kicked. He said he must have played like 8 different guys who got his ass kicked by the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Nice, bro. So what happened was, like I said, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was a very popular show on Fox, and it ran like every day.
Were you allowed to watch it?
Yeah,
I wasn't allowed to watch it growing up.
My folks didn't care. They love Power Rangers.
My parents got upset because then I tried to do the shit I saw.
Oh yeah, they had a legitimate reason for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Me, not so much.
They're like, no, we get you too amped up.
I was a chubby homebody kid, so they wouldn't.
No, I was a chubby homebody kid, but I would try to do the karate. That's the same reason I wasn't allowed to watch until I was like maybe 12. I wasn't allowed to watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because it's the same thing. I'd be like, let's go do some martial arts and shit.
Let's go to get a ninja star and some nunchucks. I can see you doing some shit like that.
It was basically that episode of South Park where the kids have the weapons they're not supposed to have.
You're Dermot. You watched Venture Brothers, right?
Yeah,
you're Dermot.
Pretty much.
You were Dermot. You had nunchucks, like you would keep fucking yourself up. You're I could do a better one if I had my tabby boots. you were fucking Dermot.
As a kid, that was basically
you were fucking Dermot. That was funny.
I can admit this because I finally got married. So at this point, she stuck with me and all my dorkiness.
Now, in terms of spin-offs itself for Power Rangers, like I said, Power Rangers was an immensely popular show. It had movies. It had God knows how many spin-offs.
Well, they just had another movie.
Yeah, and they had a remake of that. They still have like actual TV shows running to this day on like Disney and other shit. Like it's like the 20th or 25th iteration of Power Rangers at this point. I can't track, but the actual spin-offs I'm be referring to right now were actually the ones that usually came on Fox. And at the height of Power Rangers, basically rip-offs of Power Rangers. Actually, most of them came on Fox, and one of them came on USA Network. Yeah. But the first one I'll talk about is VR Troopers. You remember that one, right?
Yeah, but see, when you're talking about stuff like this, though, it's not quite a spin-off as much as it's a rip-off. Because it's almost like the original Battlestar Galactica. Yeah. If anybody knows the story of the movie or whatever, right? Yeah. Fox essentially gets their ass handed to them because they make the worst deal ever with George Lucas, giving him all the merchandising and everything. And everyone else in town goes, oh my God, do you see how much money Star Wars is making? So Universal rushes out that piece of shit movie where it was literally nearly a carbon copy, but dumber.
Battle Beyond the Stars, right?
Well, I only know it as Battlestar Galactica. I don't know. Yeah, and then they finally did okay when they did with the Cylons and everything. They did the remake of the TV show.
Yeah, okay. But like I said, these basically are rip-offs, so let's go with that.
Okay, so this is rip-offs more than spin-offs.
This is rip-offs more than spin-offs. So the first one is VR Troopers. Now, they basically what they did is they took the Power Rangers formula, young kids, fighting, getting these powers and fighting a certain enemy or whatever. But the whole thing with Power Rangers was they would rip off footage from old Super Sentai shows from the 70s in Japan. So it's like 1970s footage, but like they would have the kids in like modern day, and it's like very clear the body types are different.
Yeah, it was obvious
the martial arts levels are different.
Well, it was essentially leased footage.
Yes,
so they basically go and they find these old treasure troves of extra film that they shot. So they nobody did anything, and they just rent it.
So these were 90s action shows with footage from the 70s. So now with VR Troopers, they took 3 different Japanese shows. Matador, Spielberg, and Shader. I think those are the pronunciations. So basically the story is like 3 kids granted special powers to fight against the forces of Grimlord, a benevolent being from virtual reality. And he had like evil mutants and shit like that. So they basically, did the whole get down. The thing about it was the show only lasted 2 years because of the fact they ran out of Japanese footage of those shows.
I gotta say, I'm really impressed with your pronunciation.
Thank you.
It's almost like you're, native. Did you live there?
Actually, I did live. That's the really fucked up part. I actually did live in Japan for a year.
Nihongo hanashimasu ka?
I'm not doing that shit. I'm really not. The next one is actually Masked Rider, which is a ripoff of the Kamen Rider franchise in Japan. Follows a kid named Dex, who's an alien prince who comes from this world, who's descended from insects. He comes to Earth. He's forced to flee to Earth and makes his last stand as the Masked Rider to defend both planets from this like alien warlord and shit like that. And the same thing, they took footage from the Kamen Rider series, which was basically a close relative of the Super Sentai series that Power Rangers is based on. Yeah. And same thing, it also didn't last very long because they ran out of footage.
That's the biggest problem with that as your formula.
Yeah. The next one, these are all really quick. Next one is a big bad Beetleborgs. This is actually of these ones I'm listing. This is actually the more successful one because I remember watching Big Bad Beetleborgs, and they had a really weird premise.
Better than Transformers.
It was better than Transformers actually. But these 3 kids, 2 white kids, 1 black kid, go into this haunted house, which is so weird. And then they find this like this like monster monsters in the house, and all the monsters are like the Universal monsters.
Yeah.
This is like Frankenstein, and the mummy stuff's not really scary at all.
Yeah.
And then they have this one ghost who's like the head like person of the house named Blabber, who's basically a blue version of Jay Leno. Same thing. Blue face, makes really bad jokes, had a humongous chin. Yeah. And basically what happens was they find Blabber and he's like, hey, I'll grant you guys one wish. And they're like, at the time they were reading this comic book called Big Bad Beetleborgs, and they decided, you know what, could you make us into the Beetleborgs? And that's what happened. And they became superheroes and shit. And the source material for this particular one is another Japanese show called Bee Fighter.
Yeah.
So,
it's the crazy thing, especially with television, when you look at it, it doesn't matter where you're going. A lot of the most successful television shows have source material from another country. Like there's actually a documentary you can watch when they took Ray.
Yeah.
You know, the Ray, isn't that what they, no, Everybody Loves Raymond. That's what it was. Okay. When they took that to Russia, because they ended up remaking it and doing it for a Russian audience and playing around with it. And I mean, like we were joking around about before with Tarantino's paraphrasing of good artists borrow, great artists steal.
Yeah.
It's no more is it more true than in television, whether you're talking about cartoons or live action, multicam, single cam. All of this stuff generally has a very similar formula, and a lot of even The Office. That was a really interesting reimagining of what we had going on with The Office in the UK.
Yeah.
Oh, what'd you find?
I'm gonna show you this in a second. Like we can't really show it on the actual. Well, we have no video, so we can't really show it. But what I'm gonna show you.
If people start donating, we might.
Yeah. But what I'm gonna show you right now is the last of the ripoffs, and it's actually my favorite because of how stupid it was.
Stupid or brilliant?
Well, you tell me. I'm gonna tell you the title.
It's a fine line.
Tattooed teenage alien fighters from Beverly Hills.
Okay, I don't even know this one, but I'm in.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna show real quick. I'm gonna show AJ the intro.
And you can look this up on YouTube.
It's on YouTube.
Okay.
Isn't this awesome?
This is literally nearly a carbon copy
of Power Rangers. Yeah.
Wait, but there's like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles twist.
Yeah, but okay, so the teenagers.
Okay, so he's from Beverly Hills, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, and they have tattoos.
Yeah.
Did they use this from Saved by the Bell?
Might as well, yeah.
And apparently they also have transporters because they wanted to get something out of Star Trek. Good God.
Alien fighters.
You've got to watch this stuff. You got to watch it.
Teenage alien fighters from Beverly Hills.
Definitely watch it.
Look at the generic ass actors they had.
Well, I mean, you're not going to get like Natalie Portman.
I know, but still, just look. Black guy.
And of course, the token black guy, of course.
Oh, okay.
So that's a first for us. Hopefully that audio doesn't get us pulled.
No, like I'm pretty sure it's layout structured, but like.
Well, no, I just mean because we definitely picked it up on the mic. I'm looking at it here on the.
Yeah, we should be fine. Yeah. But yeah,
look it up, watch it.
That was tattooed teenage alien fighters from Beverly.
It is amazing.
It is awful.
It's everything I hoped it would be.
And so what they did is they took the shit. You saw the tattoos, right? So they did astrological signs as opposed to like dinosaurs and shit like that. They did on the Power Rangers. So it's Scorpio, you know. And instead of actually having like a Megazord or some shit like that, because of course they couldn't
do that.
So they just had them. They had the actual people grow to giants, fighting giant monsters.
Good God.
I
will say that I think, if I remember correctly, my cinematic history, you could maybe argue that King Kong was the first one, but I feel Godzilla and all of the Japanese production that came out in the 70s was the progenitor of this kind of thing, where it's like, okay, let's do scale model cities and we're just going to destroy this shit. Yeah, exactly.
It's Godzilla. All right, so let's go to the next one. So now we're going to go back to sitcoms again.
And are these going to actually be spin-offs?
Yes, they are.
Okay, back to spin-offs.
So
enough rip-offs.
Yeah, so well, actually, we're going to do another one. Start with one that's actually another one that's very similar to All in the Family, that started as a British show, Sanford and Son. Mm-hmm. And the actual British origin comes from a show called Steptoe and Son. Same thing, where it's like, but it's two British dudes, an old British dude and his young British son, and they like living in a junk house and selling junkyard shit, and they get into get rich quick schemes and shit like that. So it's basically what it was. But this starred Red Fox and Demond Wilson as Lamont.
You know, as you're describing the setup and the idea, it's really not that dissimilar from one of my favorite television shows right now. It's Always Sunny in Philly.
Yeah.
The main difference is instead of living in a junkyard and selling junk, they run a shithole bar. But still the same thing. Every episode's essentially a get rich quick scheme.
Yeah. So a lot of the characters that came out of Sanford and Son, besides Fred Sanford and his son Lamont, he had his friends like Bubba and Aunt Esther and Grady and all them other different people. Now, the first spinoff to come from Sanford and Son is Grady. Whitman Mayo as Grady.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, he got his own show. And actually what it was is like he moved from Watts, where the show Sanford and Son is based, to Westwood. And he lived with his daughter and her husband, who was like an attorney or some shit, and the whole different thing where he's like this, meddling old man coming in, messing up their lives and shit like that. Yeah. So that was the whole get down of Grady. Never found a solid audience, and actually it was canceled after 10 episodes. And then eventually Grady returned back to Sanford and Son.
And again, at least he had somewhere to land.
Yeah. Now, the next spinoff actually is another one that only lasted a year, the Sanford Arms.
I don't know this one.
Never heard of this one? Okay. So both Red Fox and Demond Wilson left the show due to contract disputes. And what they had was they basically kind of did like a little closer on Sanford and Son, stating that Fred and Lamont had moved to Arizona. Now, in the later episodes of the show, there was an apartment building apparently next to the junkyard that Fred was talking about buying. Now, eventually, they buy it towards the end of the episode, but then they explained that they moved away. So they sold the property to this dude named Phil Wheeler, who was a widower and old Army friend of Fred's. Now, Phil was played by an actor named Theodore Wilson, who was best known as Sweet Daddy on Good Times. So he was playing a straight-laced character here. He was running this hotel. And he moves in, and he has like 2 teenage kids named Angie and Nat. And the whole primary thing is like them building this, turning this apartment building into an actual hotel, the Sanford Arms. And what happened was they have like all the different characters from Sanford and Son come back on this show working as employees of the hotel. Now, Bubba is like apparently like I think he's like the handyman or some shit like that. Grady's there. Aunt Esther's like helping with finances and shit like that. And then like the whole little, they have little adventures in the show or whatever. But eventually, same thing happens. Never really caught on. Only lasted 1 season in 1977. Now, after this is an actual continuation of sorts, so very similar to Archie Bunker's place. There's one called Sanford with Red Fox. Red Fox came back as Fred Sanford. Now, what happened was this was added in March 1980 as a mid-season replacement. Now, Demond Wilson refused to play Lamont again because he had found God and decided to get out of show business. So they basically explained him as being a way that Lamont now works in the Alaska Pipeline, very similar to James Evans. So
apparently, the Alaska Pipeline was where, where all characters went to die.
If you go away, you got to go to the Alaska Pipeline.
I mean, it's far enough away.
Now, his new business partner, because of the fact that he needed to have somebody there, was this giant white boy named Cal Petty, who was a big white boy southerner who worked with Lamont. And Lamont sent him down there to, help with his dad. Now, keep in mind, Cal is big southern boy, very optimistic, very jovial, very nice to get along with for anybody else. But Fred being Fred, he kind of treats him like shit.
Yeah, because that's kind of what he did.
Yeah, that's kind of what he did. And they brought back a bunch of the other characters from the show, like the original show. Like Rollo actually joined the cast as a delivery man for the junkyard and shit. And they brought back Grady, they brought back Bubba, and eventually they brought back Aunt Esther.
Oh, yeah.
But this one lasted only like 2 seasons. So, Sanford, there's that.
Yeah, but I mean, look, you can't, and this is just my opinion. Obviously, I wasn't there. I didn't get to make the decision. You can't really go wrong with Red Fox.
No, you can't.
I mean, the man's a comedic god.
Yeah. Now, the next one is actually a very, very well-established show that people love to this day, The Brady Bunch. Dun, 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 dun. Here's a story of a lovely lady.
You have a connection to the Brady Bunch.
You just bring in a... What?
Yeah. A TMI.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, so what he's referring to is on my sketch show, man, TMI Hollywood. They do it. They have a recurring Brady Bunch segment, and in the beginning of the Brady Bunch segment, they have me as Alice. So yeah,
You're gorgeous.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, they always have me as Alice. They have different actors play the different Brady Bunch people, but they always have me as Alice. And so the Brady Bunch was a very popular show in the early 1970s. Lasted from 1969 to 1974, and of course, towards the end, they went from just a regular family to a goddamn musical group. And good time music.
That was actually, I think that's the first sitcom to ever, broach the subject of blended families.
Yeah, because the fact that both from divorcee families.
Yep.
Mike Brady had his kids, and Carol had her. Was Carol, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Carol had her kids.
I'm gonna just be honest with everyone.
Yeah.
I don't think I watched more than maybe 2 episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm aware of it, but
yeah, I remember the football shit where like she hits the shoulder. Oh, my nose, that shit.
Yeah, exactly.
And something suddenly came up.
Marsha.
That the standard pop culture stuff for the Brady Bunch, and what's the other one? The Brady's Go Hawaiian.
Yeah.
Where they have like the fucking like the tiki statue that's like giving everybody bad luck.
Well, then they started doing stuff. They have like Charo on and stuff like that, right?
No.
Oh no, that was always like the musical things featuring the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it was.
Getting into that. Now, the Brady Bunch itself had a couple spin-offs on its own. The first one was a cartoon called The Brady Kids. Now, basically what it was is it had the Brady kids themselves on various adventures. The adults were never mentioned or never seen. No Alice, no Carol, no Mike, nothing. And they always...
That's okay. We don't need adults.
And, of course, they have, like, talking dogs and shit like that. And, it's very 70s TV show. And actually, funny enough, the Super Friends actually started on the Brady Kids. There was an episode where they met Superman and Wonder Woman, I believe, and they had an adventure with them. And that the actors that they used and the design that they used for the Brady Kids went over to the fucking Justice League.
Well, there's your connection to the MCU. That's DC.
Yeah, went over to the Super Friends cartoon. So they started in there. Now, the first 17 episodes had all the 6 original kids, but towards the end of the shit, Barry Williams, Maureen McCormick, and Christopher Knight were replaced after a contract dispute. So that ended.
Once money gets into it, stuff gets fucked up.
Then another one, which is a commonplace in the 70s, the Brady Bunch Hour.
Yeah,
they had a variety show where they were a musical act. And there was no mention of the house, and they would do like lame jokes and shit. So so Sonny and Cher type shit. The Osmonds, the Jacksons, everybody.
That's where Charo was.
Yeah, that's what Charo was.
Was Kiss on an episode of that?
It might have well been.
I feel like Kiss was at some point.
Probably, I don't doubt it. But
that's around the time Kiss saved Santa. Or saved Christmas and Santa.
Something like that. I think they were on Dinosaur or some shit like that.
I don't even
Either way, but some weirdo shit like that. But yeah, they had their own variety show and they would do songs and skits and shit like that. And apparently it was produced by the same people that did HR Puffin stuff. The Croft.
Oh, you know what?
The Croft family, yeah. Sid and Marty Croft.
I actually, I was fortunate enough, I got to meet him once. He's a nice guy. He's still out there making shit.
Sid Croft?
Yep.
Cool.
I was doing a bunch of trucking stuff for his daughter, for the company, but I was dealing more with his daughter. But I got to meet him for like 2 minutes, and he was a hell of a nice guy.
Funny enough, HR Puffin stuff was my mom's favorite cartoon when she was a kid. Yeah, she loved HR Puffin stuff.
Dude, their office is killer, man, because they've got all this HR Puffin stuff all around. It's great, man.
Yeah, it's so weird. But yeah, they had their own variety show. Like I said, a bunch of other acts had the same thing. Sonny and Cher, the Osmonds, the Jacksons had one. Yeah, very similar. And but yeah, they had their own little variety show. It only lasted a season, but the same thing. It is very sporadic when they would put it on, so it never really caught on. The next one will be the Brady Brides in '81. They did a TV reunion movie in 1981 called "The Brady Girls Get Married," and basically it brought everybody back. Basically, it would be the only time the entire cast worked together on a single project after the cancellation of the original show. Yep. Is this TV movie. So what the whole premise was, Marsha and Jan are both getting married at the exact same time. And that was the premise of the movie, and then eventually they took that premise over into a show, which was actually a sitcom, which is the only Brady-related show that was actually filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they had the whole little get down to marriage and all the bullshit.
And of course, Marsha playing second fiddle.
Yeah, it only lasted a year. Of course.
Actually, sorry, Jan's playing the second fiddle to Marsha.
Marsha, of course, Marsha.
Yep.
And then after that, they had a show called The Bradys in 1990, which was actually a TV drama.
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, they did a. Well, I know you heard of this. The TV movie they did, A Very Brady Christmas.
I do know that.
Yeah, which aired around it actually aired in 1988, and they brought everybody back except for Cindy, who was actually on a honeymoon at the time. They replaced her. But the Nielsen ratings of that show, it was actually the highest rated TV movie of the entire year for CBS. What? So, yeah, they said, we got something here.
There it is, playing with that nostalgia again.
So they brought everybody back for a, pseudo-drama show called The Bradys. They brought back Mike, and brought back, Carol and everybody. Everybody's grown now and married and having kids and shit. And funny enough, Cindy wasn't in the TV movie, and also Marsha was not on the fucking TV show. So Marie McCormick didn't do Marsha. And they were trying to do it like 30-something, that TV, the TV show. So it didn't work out either.
Well, I mean, look, you never know if it's going to work till you try. Okay,
this next one, a lot of people are not going to know, and you're not going to know either. But when I tell you what it's about and what it spawned, you'll be like, okay. Have you ever heard of a show called Sam and Friends?
No.
Okay, so the reason you probably didn't hear about it because it aired in 1955 to 1961. It was basically a show that ran locally in Washington, D.C., and it was an early live-action puppet show or whatever. Okay. And it had one character named Sam who was like this human and didn't talk, and one of the ancillary characters on that show was a lizard character named Kermit.
No shit.
And who would evolve to Kermit the Frog. And it was ran by Jim Henson and his wife. That's who created it. But the character and the show was so popular, even in this little market, that the Muppets started, getting out there. It became
a thing.
The very first Muppet to get any national exposure was Rolf. The dog. Ralph the dog. And because he would appear regularly on the Jimmy Dean show.
Oh, okay.
And I mean Jimmy Dean as of Jimmy Dean Sausage for those kids out there. Who also was in a Bond movie, Diamonds Are Forever, yeah. But back then he was a singer and actor. Yep. But now he's most known for his sausage.
They're tasty.
They are pretty good, actually. Yeah.
He's most known for that and Paula.
That's right.
his daughter, for anyone who hasn't paid any attention to pop culture for the last 15 years.
Yeah, Paula Dean, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. Okay, so because of that popularity, the Muppets would start appearing on different TV shows like The Tonight Show, and they had a little segment on Saturday Night Live, which was actually more adult-oriented at the time, and they actually had some adult-oriented specials on TV, like I think the Muppets, Sex and Violence and shit like that. Yeah. So yeah, they did stuff like that. But they got in contact. They were actually contacted by Joan Gans Cooney and Lloyd Morissette for developing a children's educational program. And that particular children's educational program, produced by the Children's Television Workshop, Sesame Street, debuted in 1969 with Jim Henson and his creative team. And Jim Henson actually did a fucking George Lucas deal with Sesame Street. He waived his performance fee in exchange for retaining ownership rights to the Muppets characters created for that show.
Yep.
So
one of those brilliant business moves that has paid off
tremendously,
just insanely. One of the crazy things, I think last I heard, probably around. It was when the Elmo craze came back again. Mm-hmm. Not the Tickle Me Elmo from the 90s, but this would have been around 2012, something like that. Yeah. They were saying that the licensing rights for all the different material that they've got, the stuffed animals, all that shit, it's about $40 million a year. Yeah. Is about what they're bringing in. And I mean, you can still see if you drive through Hollywood today. Yeah, the Jim Henson Company is in Hollywood. Well, they ended up buying, and their current location where they are used to be Charlie Chaplin Studios. Yeah, my friend and his my two friends, Russ and Sarah Guberman, they got married at the Jim Henson Studio. That's cool. Like 2 years ago. It's a really all the stages in town. It's probably one of the smallest, if not the smallest. Yeah. but it's still great. There's so much history, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, everything was closed down when we went there, but I can see like the posters and all the different stuff, and then you see like the Kermit statue going into there. Like,
well, and if I remember correctly, I believe there's also like one of those. It's kind of like they do at the Chinese theater, where they've got like footprints and stuff from Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah, it is a pretty cool place you ever get there. But yeah, Sesame Street debuted and it became a hugely popular show, which still runs to this day.
Yep.
Yeah. And actually, if you look at the original episode of Sesame Street, there's like a group of black singers. One of them is Luther Vandross.
No shit.
Very young Luther Vandross. He looks like at least 18. He's chubby and just like, hello, Sesame Street, like this shit. And then another one of the early episodes is Stevie Wonder doing Sesame Street. The Sesame Street theme on synthesizer.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that.
Sesame Street. It's so funky. But yeah, it's so fucking dope, man. But yeah, Sesame Street still runs to this day. And then Sesame Street plateau and like, I say plateau, but I was
going to say, I mean, it's been syndicated into like 100 countries or something. They have versions that they do in pretty much every industrial country around the world.
I realized I said I misspoke, but Sesame Street actually led to another landmark TV show for the Muppet franchise, The Muppet Show.
Yep.
The Muppet Show, which debuted in 1976. It was basically produced in England and it was on first run syndication here in the United States or whatever. But because of the fact that it introduced this whole new universe of characters, introduced Miss Piggy, Fozzie, Gonzo, Animal, fucking a whole was the band?
Oh, I can't remember the name of the band, but I
Electric
love that.
Mayhem.
Yeah,
with Dr. Teeth.
and you've got Animal as the drummer, which is perfect.
I love Animal, man. But yeah, all those characters got introduced on The Muppet Show. And that was so popular and because it had such a unique sense of humor and the way it was done. And the fucking guest stars on The Muppet Show were ridiculous. Roger Moore, Steve Martin, fucking Sylvester Stallone.
Honestly, it was as big a deal, if not bigger, than being on Tonight Show.
Yeah, and then
it was huge.
Mark Hamill, when he was like just becoming Luke Skywalker, was on the Muppet Show, like all that shit. And of course, because of its unique sense of humor and the prolific stature that it got, it was nominated for 22 Emmy Awards, winning 4 for Outstanding Variety Series.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and again, one of the things that's great with them too, and I think you're just starting to lead into this, so I'm sorry I'm stepping on your toes.
No, go ahead.
All of the movies.
That's what exactly.
Which they still, and that's the great thing too about Muppets or anything that's animated. It doesn't matter if your actor's age. Yeah. And even if they get to the point where they don't want to do it anymore or they can't do it anymore, the show doesn't change. You just have to find somebody who can match the voice close enough.
Yeah. And then, of course, like I said, the TV show led to the movies, the Muppet Movie, the Great Muppet Caper, the Muppets Take Manhattan, and the list goes on and on. And
did you see that?
The Muppet Christmas Carol, all that shit.
What was it, the Melissa McCarthy movie with the Muppets, where it was like a rated R, like adult version?
Oh, I know what you're talking about, like something murders.
It's like the Muppet Murders or something
like that. Yeah.
It's pretty ridiculous. And from what I remember, there's like a fight between the estate, and I think maybe one of the kids might have been involved with getting it made. It's pretty crazy, but to the point. Yeah. That turned out. In fact, it was hilarious enough. There's a group that I'm on Facebook, Briar Nation. Shout out to Briar Nation guys. Had a hilarious little thing that you're doing on there before. Was like, pick a movie. One character gets to be a human. All the rest are Muppets. And so guys are going back and forth trying to, like, mine that I went with was Casino, keep Don Rickles. every other character's a Muppet but Don Rickles.
Pesci is a Muppet, that's funny.
Well, all of them, man.
De Niro's a Muppet, yeah.
Charlie Yam.
You ain't pop your fucking eye out for that piece of shit. And the Muppets doing this shit there.
That's what I'm saying.
That would be hilarious.
But that's what's so great about this concept of Muppets, right? I mean, it created an entire... In fact, set that aside. You go over to something like Avenue Q. Yeah. I mean, it created an entire new genre. It really did. Because, puppetry prior to that it was a joke. I mean, it was something of a bygone era. I mean, you couldn't even go to vaudeville, really. I mean, unless you wanted to play around with, like, ventriloquism. You had to go back, way back.
I'm just throwing this out there. I want us to do a Muppet show.
A Muppet show?
Yeah.
That would, do you think it would be PG?
No. But I want us to do a Muppet show.
All right, we'll table that for now.
For the Muppet franchise.
Okay.
Okay, so we're done with the Muppets now. Now, the next one is a very obscure show You probably won't know it, but you will know what came out of it. You ever heard of Liquid Television?
It sounds familiar.
It aired on MTV and is basically a showcase for adult animation. The two most famous skits that came out of the show, Beavis and Butthead, and Aeon Flux.
That's what I got.
I remember the Aeon Flux cartoons and they were so freaky.
I know it more for Beavis and
Butthead. Yeah, like the first Beavis and Butthead skit, Frog Baseball, was on Liquid Television, and it was so popular that it sponsored their own TV show, Beavis and Butthead, which ran from 1993 to 1997 and had a brief revival in 2011.
Which actually, when you watch the movie and everything, and then watch the run of the series, that leads into
Daria.
Well, no, I wasn't going to do just Daria.
Yeah, but
King of the Hill.
That's true.
Because you get, I mean, even though the concept of Hank Hill isn't fully developed, propane accessories,
but Mr. Anderson, the neighbor, Mr. Anderson is
not only looks like him, but his personality
is
and
the
very much the
same voice and everything. Yeah, Mr. Anderson on Beavis and Butthead was basically Hank Hill.
Yeah,
but like I said, what I was going to say, the spinoff of Beavis and Butthead, Daria.
Yes, Daria for sure.
Daria is very Gen X. Probably one of the most Gen X cartoons you ever seen in your entire life, because like she's just like basically Janine Garofalo as a teenager, like just uber depressed and
and nothing against any of her live action stuff. I think that's still her best work.
Yeah,
it's great because you really they did a great job of helping audiences be able to connect. Mm-hmm. And it allows a lot of the understated, it's almost gallows humor at some points to really land.
Okay.
Without getting lost in her facial expressions or anyone else.
Gotcha. All right, so we got actually we want to do like two more shows because we're actually kind of running along here. Actually, you know what? I think I can knock out a couple more. But,
let's keep cruising.
Right. Yeah, okay.
I'm having fun.
Yeah, so the next show, The Golden Girls.
There you go.
The Golden Girls, 4 old biddies in Miami, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it's basically Sex in the City before Sex in the City, but they didn't actually show any sex. Thank God. But yeah,
it would have been
but it's
a little rough.
But it's 4 veteran television actresses. Ooh. Freaking B. Arthur, Betty White, Rue McClanahan, and Estelle Getty. You know what I'm saying? Blanche, Rose, Dorothy, and Sophia. Those are the names, yeah. And they're all living in this house, and they're talking about their sex lives and shit like that, and they all have like little adventures. But the show's more popular than it show's super popular, like freaking like it's up there with the Cosby Show at the time in terms of its popularity. Now that's another one of those shows where all 4 leads won the Emmy at different times.
I'm sorry, I'm still just stuck on showing sex for a Golden Girls.
Jesus Christ. Yeah,
that's just so disturbing.
But that's what the show is about. It's like when I was young, I didn't get it, but like I rewatched a few of them. Oh, as an adult, like, oh my God, all they talk about is sex and cheesecake. Sex and cheesecake, old ladies.
Almost enough to ruin sex.
Yeah. Can you imagine fucking B. Arthur riding?
Okay.
B. Arthur riding dick.
We didn't need. So what do you got next? You can say Sex in the City was a spinoff.
Whatever. Well, fuck that shit. That's good. I'm on this subject now. All right, I'm gonna get off that.
All right, thank you.
I'm gonna get off of B.
Yeah, dude. You better get off of B. Have B. Arthur get off of you.
That B. Arthur voice though. Okay. All right. So the first spinoff, there's another one that's just like it's not really a spinoff, but it's a continuation of the original series, The Golden Palace. You never heard of this show?
No, I don't think so.
Same thing. It's almost basically identical to the Sanford Arms. What happens is like. What's the name? The last show of the Golden Girls had the Dorothy character, the B. Arthur character, be married off. She married some guy. I don't remember the guy's name, but he was played by Leslie Nielsen. I remember that.
Okay.
Yeah. So they married her off, and then like the 3 remaining ladies are left there in Miami. So they decided to invest in this hotel. And funny enough, the hotel features young Don Cheadle as like the door guy, as like the main guy, like the manager or whatever.
Okay.
And Cheech Marin as the cook.
That's actually great casting.
Yeah, exactly. So, so basically, that was basically the whole premise of the show is these old biddies running the hotel now. So, it only lasted 1 year. So, but another spinoff, Empty Nest, which I actually did watch. Now they tried the whole premise of Empty Nest on an earlier episode with 2 other people. And the whole get down is the empty nest syndrome, where your old parents and then all your children move out and
trying to figure out what are you gonna
do. Your empty nest. You know what I'm saying? So the episode itself was whatever, but they tried to do the concept again, but they used another actor, Richard Mulligan, as a doctor named Harry Wesson, who basically worked at this hospital that the Golden Girls were frequent. Okay. You know what I'm saying? So he was like a kind of a spinoff character from there, and he had his own show. It was basically him living in Miami with him. He has 2 daughters. Both of them have moved out, but they moved back in because they both got problems. And the daughters one of them was Kristen McNichol.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other one was Dinah Manoff, who was on Soap, and she was in Grease and all those movies. David Leisure as the neighbor. He's like a flight. He's basically Quagmire for Quagmire. He looks like Quagmire, he acts like Quagmire, but very smarmy kind of pilot guy, always trying to get laid. He's always trying to fuck either one or both of the daughters. And the Dr. Weston knows it, like he hates the guy.
Yeah, as he should.
And then at the actual hospital stuff, he has this sassy Southern secretary played by Park Overall.
Okay.
Yeah, she was like, and, all right, here, Dr. Weston, just giving the attitude and Southern voice, whatever.
Yeah.
So that became a show. It became popular. It ran from 1988 to 95.
It's a good run.
And like I said, the characters will make frequent appearances throughout each other's shows. And actually, Estelle Getty actually joined the cast of Empty Nest in his last seasons.
Really?
As Sophia. Yeah, she joined the cast of the show. And another show that spun off of Empty Nest is a show called Nurses. And basically it's just the whole thing about nurses working at the same hospital as Dr. Weston. And actually one of the things that happened is one of the few times in television history where 3 shows with the same producer set in the same city and they ran back to back to back on the same network. And they actually had one mega crossover called Hurricane Saturday. The whole get down was this big hurricane came to Miami and it ran from the Golden Girls or Golden Palace to Empty Nest to Nurses, and then how it all affected them. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
That's a great way to do a crossover. Yeah. A storm makes sense.
Yes, it does, yes. Now, the next show here, have you ever heard of a show called Good Morning, Miss Bliss?
I can guarantee you I have not.
Okay.
You went deep on your research, man.
Yes,
I like it.
But the show that spun off, I'd be like, oh, okay. So Good Morning, Miss Bliss was a show that was originally broadcast on the Disney Channel. It's basically a Haley Mills, Parent Trap Haley Mills. She was a teacher, and she was like in this junior high in Indianapolis. And basically her dealing with these group of kids and shit like that. Now, what happened was the show wasn't really that popular, but people liked the kids. And they decided to take the kids and give them their own show, which became Saved by the Bell.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it started on a show called Good Morning, Miss Bliss. The original kids were Zach, Lisa, and Screech. And Mr. Belding was on the Hello.
Was it the same casting?
More or less, yes. Same cast. And Mr. Belding was on Good Morning, Miss Bliss. Then eventually they took those characters, gave them their own show, and they added A.C. Slater and Kelly Kapowski and Jesse. And they moved it from Indianapolis to the fictional city of Bayside, California. And they added the Max and the Bayside High and all
which
that.
Which actually, I went to a...
I
went to a pop-up of the Max with my wife when we were dating.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if you were into that show, you were into that show. Yeah, I mean, I was just barely outside the window on it, so I never really got into it as much.
Yeah.
I was probably a little more into, I'm not going to say any of the Disney shows necessarily, but definitely more towards like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that kind of shit. I was definitely more on the fantasy, kind of more male-driven side of stuff. Funny
enough, I actually did watch Saved by the Bell. I watched the entire original run of Saved by the Bell.
When it was on the first time around?
Yeah, I did.
I was probably watching, Flash Forward.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw that.
I do remember that one. Flash Forward.
Yeah, the kid. Remember the kid was like, well, it was Ben Foster, young Ben Foster, and he was insanely into like monster movies, especially like the old shit. Wow. It was a lot of fun, and it was because it was junior high. He was a junior high kid. It was a great film. Dude, and honestly, that guy of all the actors I can think of right now, he's probably the biggest sleeper out there. Because he is a hell of a performer. But he's only once or twice, maybe 3 times I can think of, had an opportunity to really showcase his chops. Yeah. You got Lone Survivor. Did you see...
he was in the X-Men.
The Hostage?
Yeah.
killer in Hostage. He's the bad guy in Hostage.
Yeah, he was like this almost he was like this cyberpunk with a bunch of piercings and the Punisher.
Okay, well, and then I was going to say in Alpha Dog.
Yes, he was. Yes,
he was great in Alpha Dog.
Yeah, he was the angel in X-Men: The Last Stand.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
I mean, look, your MCU's your world. I'm not going to say anything. I'll let you.
but the idea, Ben Foster, yeah.
Yeah, he's a killer actor.
Yeah. All right, so what happened was that show became insanely popular. It eventually ended when they all, graduated from high school. Now, what happened was, after that, they had 2 spinoffs of that show. First off was Saved by the Bell of the College Years, which basically followed just Zach, Screech, and AC Slater in college. They had, they got the new girls now, and they got new adventures and shit going in college, etc., etc. They didn't really do that well.
By the way, AC Slater does not age.
No, he does. He looks exactly the same.
Dude, I saw him. I saw him at what was it? I think I remember. He was like doing a presentation of medals or something at a Special Olympics thing here in LA. I was running like a video wall for it.
Yeah.
The dude still looks like he's like 20 years old.
Exactly.
It's insane.
He's at least 50.
Mario Lopez, I don't know what kind of genetics that guy's got, but it's ridiculous.
Like, they did a thing where they brought back the original cast on Fallon.
Oh yeah.
Everybody is aged horribly except AC Slater.
He's honestly he's like Tom Cruise in that way.
Just add a little Jerry Cole mullet. He looks
exactly
like
the same.
AC Slater. Fucking nuts, man.
And from everything I've heard,
looks the same. It sounds the same.
What was I saying? From everything I've heard, hell of a nice guy.
I heard the same thing.
Because unfortunately, you can't say that about everybody from any of these shows we're talking about.
But let you know, folks, just from on the outside of the whole acting circle, even news of very well-known people travels to us. And all I've ever heard of Mario Lopez is that he's a great guy.
Great guy, super, super approachable, and just really cool with everybody.
So kudos.
There you go, Mario.
Good genetics and good pedigree.
He got a shout out from Dropping That Culture.
You're damn right, man.
He's basically an Oscar winner at this point.
All right, so Saved by the Bell of College Years follows the guys, and then eventually Kelly joined the show towards the end, and the ending episode was like they turned into like this TV movie, Saved by the Bell, Wedding in Vegas, where Kelly and Zach get married.
Because that's what everyone wanted.
That's what everybody wanted, yeah. And then they have another spinoff of Saved by the Bell, The New Class. So they went back to Bayside, and they had this new cast of kids that nobody gave a shit about.
Yeah, it didn't do too well.
Yeah, and they brought back Mr. Belding, and they brought back Screech, but Screech is now Mr. Belding's administrative assistant, and he's horrible at his job. But the whole get down is this new class of kids again, and nobody cared about it, so it didn't last very long at all. Now, the next spinoff that I really enjoyed here, that a lot of people enjoyed, from the $6 Million Man.
Okay.
Yeah, of course, the 1970s TV show starring... Yeah. Lee Majors as Colonel Steve Austin, who is this astronaut who gets injured in a grave accident.
We have the technology.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Steve Austin, astronaut, a man barely alive. Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology. We have the capability to make the world's first bionic man.
Such a crazy concept.
Steve Austin will be that man. Better than he was before.
Crazy concept, but great show.
Better, stronger, faster. Get a $6 million man shit. But yeah, he went from like just an astronaut and who pretty much was going to be a paraplegic and blind in one eye for the rest of life to this super spy, secret agent in the 1970s. And he would the hallmark of the show was him displaying his powers because he would run and do shit in slow motion with the special effect. He had like 2 bionic legs, 1 bionic arm.
Proof that sound matters.
Yes, yeah. 1 bionic arm and 1 bionic eye. There's like he had like a photographic memory because of some shit like that. Yeah, but the show was.
And you have Lee Majors.
Yeah, Lee Majors was immensely popular at that time. It was an immensely popular show. The 2 episodes one of the episodes. It was 2 episodes that were really popular. The most popular episode is the Bigfoot episode, where he goes to his Bigfoot.
Yeah,
and it's Andre the Giant. and not only is it a Bigfoot, it's a bionic Bigfoot.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're gonna do it,
yeah. So this, like,
did they ever explain how the? I don't even remember. Did they ever explain how the hell they end up with a bionic Bigfoot?
Yeah.
Who built that? Was that the Russians?
No, it's aliens. It's kind of like when they jumped the shark. So yeah, it's aliens that created the bionic
look at that.
Bigfoot.
We brought it full circle.
Yeah, it was aliens that created the bionic Bigfoot. One of them was actually Stephanie Powers.
Oh God.
Yeah. So, but the whole hallmark of that is the fight between Lee Majors and Andre the Giant as Bigfoot.
Yep.
But another very popular episode was the episode entitled "The Bionic Woman." It was a two-parter.
Yep.
And it was written by Ken Johnson, who was actually the writer and creator of the Incredible Hulk TV show.
Yeah.
Don't make me angry. The line, "Don't make me angry, you won't like me when you're angry," that's a Ken Johnson line.
Yep.
So he created that show. But the Bionic Woman episode featured Lindsay Wagner, actress Lindsay Wagner, as a woman named Jamie Summers, who was an old love of Steve Austin, who became a professional tennis player. But unfortunately, she gets into a parachuting accident with Steve.
As always happens with tennis stars.
Exactly. And she ends up in an accident that also leaves her in a very similar situation as Steve, where she's basically going to lose both her legs, one arm, and her hearing in one ear. So Steve makes the call and gets them some bionic replacements. So she becomes the Bionic Woman. Unfortunately for her, her body rejected the bionic hardware in the episode, and she would have like these fits of like bionic rage, where she like tear shit apart or whatever. And eventually, the bionics were like too much for her system to work, and she died in the episode. However, the episode was so goddamn popular that they decided to bring her back. They explained it that they actually saved her using an experimental cryogenic process. But the side effect was she lost her memory, so she didn't remember who Steve was, and she basically started this new life as Jamie Summers, bionic secret agent again for the Bionic Woman TV show. That was also ran concurrently with the $6 Million Man. Funny enough, they would have crossovers, but the two shows were on two different networks. $6 Million Man was on ABC. The Bionic Woman was on NBC.
Yeah, but the explanation is, again, because this is before the repeal of the Fin-Sin rules, it was the same producer. Mm-hmm. So when you have the same producer,
Ken Johnson.
He owns everything at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. He's able to say, yeah, I don't care, I'm going to put this one on this side, because he's basically paying himself to have the crossover side of things.
Exactly. So like I said, both of those shows are super popular. They're still popular in syndication to this day.
Yep.
And they actually had some bionic TV movies, which is the thing in the late 80s. They brought back everything for a TV movie. They had the Bionic Ever After, the Bionic Showdown, and there was another one, The Return of the $6 Million Man, the Bionic Woman. Yeah. And it brought back Lindsay Wagner and Lee Majors as bionic people. Now, the next one is kind of a weird one. Soap. Remember that show?
I got to refresh my memory.
Soap, the TV show, was actually done by the same producers of the Golden Girls. I believe it's like Witt and Harris.
Okay.
Susan Witt and something Harris. I think Timothy Harris is on later. But yeah, they produced this TV show. It was basically a sitcom that used soap opera fucking storylines and shit and made it funny. But it was a really, really funny and innovative show for its time. It had like Katherine Hellman and Richard Mulligan again. Billy Crystal was on it. His character on the show, Jody Dallas, is the first gay character on television.
Really?
Yep. Jody Dallas on Soap. Yeah, he basically the premise of the show is these two families, the Tates and the Campbells, and it's these two sisters, Jessica Tate and Mary Campbell, and their two families will have these crazy, ridiculous soap opera fucking like storylines and shit. They had like fucking murder, amnesia, rape, fucking like affairs, top of affairs, fucking the people like they had like one character was like harboring a fucking South American fucking dictator. One of them had a baby that's possessed by the devil. One of the characters got abducted by aliens and replaced by an alien robot. Soap opera shit.
Yeah.
But the most popular character one of the most popular characters on the show was Jessica's butler, Benson Dubois.
Huh.
And that show, the character spun off to his own show, Benson.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thank God the producers of Benson decided to give it more of a traditional sitcom
feel.
Yeah, so Benson was played by the late Robert Guillaume. And to this day, I think he's still the only black actor, or the last black actor, to win Best Supporting Actor for an Emmy. And that was like over 30 years ago. No black actor has won it since.
Yeah.
But he was, so good with what he did, you know what I'm saying? And freaking, he killed it as Benson because he was a sassy black, thing, a sassy black butler or a sassy black housekeeper and shit. And he eventually left and got his own shit. And they only have one tie-in to soap. The tie-in to soap is that Benson leaves the Tate family, Jessica Tate, the Katherine Hellman character, to go work for her cousin, Mayor Gatling, who was like this mayor out here. Oh, sorry, Governor Gatling, who was actually the governor here in California. And Benson, in a 10-year span of the show, the show ran from like 1979 to 1986. In that near eight years, he went from the butler to lieutenant governor of the state of California within 10 years.
That's not a bad career trajectory.
Hell no, man. Like Benson took it, man. They did it in stages. He was like the butler, then became like the financial advisor, then he became lieutenant governor. Then the cliffhanger of the show is actually a governor race between Benson and Governor Gatling. And the end of it is the election results, and they never reveal who won. They never show who won.
So that was like the original Sopranos ending?
More or less, yeah. And
everyone's just mad?
Yeah. Yeah, they never show who won. Yeah.
You know what? I'm looking at it. We're getting close to our longest podcast. Let's do, because I know we got a bunch more to go through. Let's do one more, but let's make it a little more modern.
Okay.
Let's go like 90s, 2000s.
Okay. I'll go with 90s, okay. Right. The Tracy Ullman Show.
Okay.
And its spinoff, The Simpsons.
Mm-hmm.
The Simpsons started out as basically small skits on the Tracy Ullman Show, and they would they were very crude, and the voices were crude and funny.
You watched those early, I even watched season 1. Yeah. You watched that early stuff, man.
They look so weird.
Yeah,
they look so weird. But freaking the characters, they originally started out. They actually started on the 3rd episode of the first season of the Tracy Ullman Show. They're originally supposed to be on an occasional basis, alternating between certain episodes. But the reaction from the shorts was so positive that after like 7 times, they appeared like 7 times in the first season. After that, they basically got promoted to full-time status on the show, and they were basically in every episode in season 3 and 4 until eventually spinning off to their own show. Now, 2 of the cast members of the Tracy Ullman Show are the cast members of The Simpsons: Dan Castellaneta, Homer, and Julie Kavner, Marge. They started out on the Tracy Ullman Show.
Well, and that's a hell of a place to start. And then by the time you get them breaking out and doing their own thing, you have the immensely talented Frank Azaria.
That's right, yeah. And then we got so since pretty much we got to wrap this shit up. All right, what I had here is like there's a bunch of like different like shows.
Don't give too many away because we could do a part 2.
I know we can, but I'll just like do one last thing where it's like just kind of a rapid fire thing.
Okay.
Now, we know there are different shows, different franchises that have like way too many spinoffs to name. So what I wanted to do real quick of the ones that we know of, I want us both to name our favorite of those franchises.
Okay.
First off, Star Trek. What's your favorite Star Trek spinoff?
You know, I came up on Next Gen, so I'm going to stick with Next Gen because I love Deep Space Nine. Voyager was good. The originals are good, but I gotta dance with who brung me. I gotta give it to Captain Picard. I got to give it to Worf, right? And then
I want to give it to Troy.
Deanna Troi.
I want to give it to Troy. Yeah, I definitely.
Deanna Troi.
I definitely want to give it to Troy.
Yeah,
actually, I want to give it to Dr. Crusher too. I had a thing for her too. Yeah.
All right, so yours.
Okay, mine. Deep Space Nine, actually.
Yeah.
As I've gotten older, I've come to find myself gravitating more towards that because I love the fact of a black captain, Ben Sisko. And plus, I just love how they can do the whole thing with like them in the ship, traveling in different shit or whatever. But at the same time, the life in the station itself is as chaotic as anything else.
Well, and it's super interesting too when you bring in like the Ferengis and Quark, and I mean, there's a lot of different new aliens that originate in there that you just. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of attempts to get into some new worlds and some new. New alien life with Next Gen, but it never hits. And I get your point with Deep Space.
Plus, it had 2 of the best storylines of the Star Trek franchise to me. The Ben Sisko as the Emissary of the Prophet storyline and the Dominion War storyline. Both of them were on Deep Space Nine.
So solid.
Yeah, okay, so those mine. Law and Order. What's your favorite Law and Order spinoff?
Does it have to be a spinoff? Because, I mean, here's the thing. Like, SVU is pretty solid and everything. I really dig Major Crimes. If I have to pick, a spin-off, but I love the original.
Major Crimes is another show.
Isn't it? Oh no, it's
Criminal Intent.
No, it's not Criminal Intent. There's another one that's like the it's shit. It's the one with what's his name from Full Metal Jacket.
Arlie Army?
No, not Arlie Army. The dude who shoots himself.
Oh, Vincent D'Onofrio, Criminal Intent.
Oh, it's Criminal Intent.
It's Criminal Intent.
I thought they had a different name for it because they're talking about it's like the
the actual unit itself is called the Major Crimes Unit.
Okay, so that's why I was getting the Major Crime. So it's Criminal Intent. Sorry.
Yeah, but same thing with me, Criminal Intent, because I love the Vincent D'Onofrio, Goran Eames relationship. I like that character.
Yeah, I mean that's a great relationship. The thing I like about the original is a lot of the cast.
Okay.
Because you have a lot of really interesting big time cast members that come through there.
All right, and lastly, what's your favorite version of Scooby-Doo?
I'm gonna go with shit, man. I don't know. That's a hard one.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's something really great about the way they did it in the first iteration in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, I'm not even gonna guess on it. I'm gonna stick with the original.
Okay. Well, my favorite spinoff of Scooby-Doo is actually A Pup Named Scooby-Doo. That's the first one that actually exposed me to the character.
Oh, really?
A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, because he used to air on ABC Kids and shit, and it was great, man.
See, I started with the original, watching it with my mom.
First one I saw was A Pup Named Scooby-Doo.
All right.
So.
Well, I mean, and there it goes again. Nostalgia wins. Right. Where'd you start?
Yeah, exactly. This is where I started. All right, so again, this
could be a new record.
This might be a new record for the longest podcast we've ever done. Like, we just keep breaking this record every week.
You know what? We got a lot of fun stuff to talk about, and for whatever reason, we got people that like listening, so we're appreciative of that. And it's a blast. I love it every time. It's the best part of my week.
You're damn right, Lion, too, man. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up for you fast. We really hope you enjoyed the show as much as we do. We're gonna try to do more of these shows where we focus on one subject matter. You know what I'm saying? Like, we like watch-alongs and we like the ones where we just do random shit. But, like, these ones where we just go into, like, one subject and just go full on into it, I like that shit.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, there's subjects within this one subject that we can continue. Like, I want to do a Muppet show. I definitely want to do a Scooby-Doo show.
For sure.
We definitely got to do a Star Trek show.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Saying we got to do a Star Trek show is like saying we got to do a Star Wars show. We can go for episodes and episodes on both those properties.
Exactly. So, it's so dope.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and look, here's the thing, too. You got Dropping That Culture on Facebook. You drop us a line, let us know what you'd like to hear more of, less of.
Yes.
You know, we might take it under advisement.
Yeah, so please visit the Dropping That Culture Facebook page, and like I said, give us a line. Let us know what you think, man. And like I said, continue to support. Like I said, check out Belsaverse on Facebook. Check out Belsaverse on Instagram. We're going to see. I think we'll try to get Twitter, and we also have the Dropping That Culture YouTube page.
We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify, which actually is where most people are listening to us these days. Yes. We're on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play is a little bit tougher nut to crack for some reason.
Apple Podcasts and all that stuff.
We're doing it.
Yes, we are. All right, so we hope you enjoyed the show. This has been Dropping That Culture with JD
and AJ.
Hope you folks have a good night.
Dropping that culture. 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 Dropping that culture.